Do not adjust your radio dial. You are tuned in to the Mark Order Podcast. Join the Mark Order.
Ending the balance. Hey everybody! It is Wednesday night. You know what that means? It's time for Mark Order Podcast, the final Mark Order live show of 2023. We've done it. We've made it another year. And we've survived the holiday. Well, holiday. So one more to go. Hopefully we all survive that. We'll talk about that next week. But we've got Asian Joe here with us right now.
Hello.
And Kate the Great is going to be joining us shortly. Or so she says. I'm still doubtful. No, she'll be joining us. That's what she says. And then Ryan Schlong not with us tonight. He had some personal matters to attend to. All hopefully as well. And we hope to have Ryan back with us next week to talk about everything that happens from this point on in the world of AEW, because there was a lot that took place tonight that we need to talk about. Going home to they'll go home Dynamite to World's End on Saturday. One final pay-per-view for AEW. Card shaping up nicely. Some answers maybe to a few things we've been talking about. So yeah, we will get there eventually. But Joe, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm off work this week, so just been filling in my time after the holiday.
Nice. That is always nice when you have time off between, like Christmas and New Year's. This is sort of like a dead week a lot of places anyway.
It is. It was quite eventful, though. On Christmas Day, I found out my battery in my car died, so I got to buy myself a new car battery for Christmas.
Sweet.
So it's what every little boy out there wants for Christmas.
I have a story actually about like needing something real life and then not getting it for Christmas. Like when Mrs. Money and I, before Mrs. Money was Mrs. Money, and she was we were just dating. We had an apartment, living in sin, as some may say. But it was Christmas, and my mom had said, well, what do you want for Christmas? And I said, this is a true story, by the way. I said, I need a vacuum badly. Like whatever vacuum we had died. And I was like, I really need a vacuum. It doesn't need to be something crazy. I just need a decent vacuum so that way I can vacuum this apartment. And she was like, okay, anything else you kind of need? I was like, honestly, no. Like I could really use a vacuum. So Christmas Eve, something happened in our apartment and I needed to, like in that moment, I needed to vacuum. Like we spilled something and it was all over the carpet or something like that. And I really needed a vacuum. So I called my mom and I said, Mom, be straight with me. Did you get me a vacuum? Because I really need it. And I'll come to your house and pick it up now because I've had an accident here. I need a vacuum. And she said, nope, didn't get you a vacuum. And I was like, but you asked what I needed or wanted. And that was like something I really needed. And the response that I got was, well, that's not fun. So Christmas Eve, I went out and bought a vacuum, and I'm sure for that Christmas, since it wasn't fun, and I can't remember what I got that Christmas, Joe, it probably wasn't great.
If you can't remember it, yeah.
Nothing that, like, if I got a vacuum, I would have remembered that forever, but I did not remember it. So I understand where you're coming from, Joe. It's what every little boy wants, a car battery for Christmas, but sometimes that's what you got to do.
In past years, I bought myself a vacuum in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to up my game a little bit, and I went for a Dyson. And then,
wow.
Yeah, and then a couple years before then, I think I bought myself a KitchenAid mixer to make bread and other stuff. So, yeah, being an adult.
Yeah, hey, the KitchenAid came in handy with me this year doing cookies. I did them all the Saturday before Christmas. Like the 23rd, I was baking that night.
Okay.
I was like, I got to get it in. Joe, is that a new sneaker lamp behind you?
Yeah, so a couple I'm friends with, I go over there for Christmas, for dinner on Christmas, which is when I found out my car battery had died, and they would get me something, and I get them something, and I get their two little kids something because I'm Uncle Joe, who's not uncle by blood, but just uncle because I've been around since they've been born.
Sure.
So yeah, they got me it's a little light up neon looking sneaker sign behind me.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome because you're a sneaker guy.
I know. I buy their kids little Jordans and stuff like that. So
it's fantastic. And I think I saw you got yourself a pair of those slipper, Air Force One looking slipper.
Oh, yeah. The slippers that look like shoes.
Yeah. Just living in comfort, man. Living in comfort. So Christmas was good, and you got yourself the thing you needed. Anything else noteworthy about Christmas?
No, other than I planned my birthday trip next month.
You did? What did you wind up with?
So I decided to go out to San Jose.
Nice.
So I'm going to go I bought my ticket for Battle in the Valley.
Okay, excellent.
I'm going to check that out. And then hang around San Jose, and I have some friends kind of in between there and Sacramento. So I'll probably try to meet up with them as well and do some other stuff. I think in San Jose, I also want to go to the Winchester House.
Oh, yes.
Heard that?
Yeah, where the lady just kept building and none of it made sense.
Right. Yep. Yeah. They do, daily tours. So I want to try to check that out. So
is that a place too, Joe, that you can stay over? If you spend, for $1,500, you could spend there?
I'm sure if you had a lot of money.
Okay.
But for the $42 it costs to tour the place for, whatever the tour is, that's enough for me.
Okay. No, I just wasn't sure. There are certain places hotels or whatever that are supposed to be haunted, and it's you could tour the place for $50, but if you want to spend the night, it's $300 or something crazy like that,
Yeah, and that's how I got onto it. I kept seeing it enough for those random ghost hunting shows on TV.
I know they made the movie out of it too. They made a movie called, I think, The Winchester or Winchester. Okay. I don't think it did well, but it looked crazy.
And then other than that, I went and saw the Iron Claw over the weekend, so that was good.
Did you enjoy the Iron Claw?
Yeah, it was. No, there wasn't a real happy ending, obviously.
Well, yeah.
It's yeah. I know you can kind of tell there's some little creative liberties they took here and there to kind of tighten the story up a little bit, but
right.
I didn't buy. It's hard to buy Zac Efron and Kevin Von Erich.
Yeah,
he just seems so short and stout compared to what Kevin is, and I felt the same way with what's his name, Jeremy Allen, White.
Oh, yeah. I don't know his real name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he played Kerry Von Erich. I mean, he was kind of, obviously too small to be Kerry, but
Sure. Yeah, I guess it's hard to find a lot of people with a wrestler build who are real, sort of Hollywood actors. But that's great. I mean, I know my brother saw the Iron Claw and said it was good.
Mhm.
You're saying it's good. I have yet to see it. It's on my list to see. I just haven't had a chance to go to the movies. I'll see it. I still have to see Wonka too. I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen that either.
Haven't seen it. Well, that's cool, man. That's good. Glad to hear. Glad to hear you've got your trip planned. Are you going to try to see about the Sharks or the Sacramento Kings or anything like that?
So much like your dilemma when you went to St. Louis, like I looked at everything, like the Sharks, Sacramento Kings, Golden State Warriors, every possible sporting event around that area, they're all away.
Oh my God.
So
that's wild.
I know. And I'm like, and obviously the 49er football season will be over pretty much by then.
Sure.
Otherwise, I'd be interested in like going to check out like their little museum tour of the stadium.
Sure.
It's like right there in Santa Clara. So, but yeah, otherwise all the teams are gone.
Out of town, man. Oh man. It's a tough one because I was in that position too. It's like, okay, what can you do? It's like you'd like to check out what the experience is like, even if you're not really a fan of the team. And it's like, how can nobody be in town? It's wild.
Bad timing.
Well, good, man. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear everything was good for the holiday.
Yeah.
So good. We kept it pretty mellow. We stayed home. We I say mellow, but we hosted. So sometimes it's crazy. But you know what? All credit to Mrs. Money because she planned Christmas instead of doing like a formal sit down dinner, because my mom does Christmas Eve like traditional Italian with all the fish and all that shit and a pasta course to start, which is great. But then the next day, like, you're not hungry. Like, you've eaten so much the night before. Like, nobody's generally hungry. So, like, in the past, when we've, like, made, like, ziti and meatballs and, brajol and all that kind of stuff, like, people barely eat. So Mrs. Money had the idea this year, and she said after the fact, I didn't realize, or maybe I just never caught her as she was saying it when planning it out, but she was like, I've always sort of wanted to do like a holiday or a dinner or something like where it's just sort of like hors d'oeuvres and sort of, fancy snacks through the day.
Yeah, you're doing tapas almost. Yeah.
Yeah. So like we did, like when people got to the house, we had like cold, like apps and snacks. So it was like, charcuterie and bread and dips and all that kind of stuff. There was some hot stuff at that time too, but it wasn't like hot appetizer time. And then like, we took a little break in the action, and then kids opened gifts, and then we did hot, like apps and snacks. So it was like, empanadas and egg rolls and spanakopita and samosas, mozzarella sticks. We had the little smokies going all day, so like that kind of stuff. And then dessert was a whole spread of dessert too. And I made homemade Jubilee roll, which was a Friendly's dessert. It was basically like an ice cream roll, but they discontinued it. So I made it because it was sort of like a family sort of quote unquote Christmas tradition to have the Jubilee roll. So I handmade it, all the ice cream from scratch. I made Muddy Buddies or Puppy Chow, depending on where you come from. It's basically like chocolate covered checks.
Yep.
Did cookies, did the little smokies. So it was a crazy day, but it was a fun day.
No pigs in a blanket.
Didn't need the pigs in a blanket because we had the little smokies going. And honestly, like with everything else that we had going, pigs in a blanket would have been overkill. Like the amount of stuff we had when you step back and took a look at it was like, oh my God, like we've got so much shit.
I just figured the way you had it planned out, like you were so fancy that pigs in a blanket seemed to be the fancier option than a smoky.
You know what though? The Smokies were a hit. The Smokies were one that we generally don't have. Like, and I had them once before at some sort of party, and I liked them. And then when we went out to St. Louis, some guy made some sort of sauce, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's good, great for little Smokies." And I was like, "Oh, like I should do that for Christmas." And then we did it like I mentioned last time, and everybody was like, "Grape jelly? That doesn't make any sense," but it does. Try it, Joe. Here's the ratio. You do 1 cup of barbecue sauce, 3/4 of a cup of grape jelly. And that's it. Plus your Smokies. It works. But you can't go too sweet with the barbecue because the grape jelly adds a lot of sweetness. There's your
No
tip.
pigs in a blanket.
That's
I
it.
show up late, and the first thing I hear is no pigs in a blanket. It's like one of 3 things I really miss about being vegan. It's just like pig in a blanket, and the blanket. Oh, when you get the dough to pig ratio right, and it goes over the.
I mean, we did have things. We did have like fried raviolis, mac and cheese balls.
Okay.
Mozzarella sticks, samosas, egg rolls.
Okay, maybe there's more than 2 or 3 things that I miss about being vegan, because everything you just said I want right now. Mostly it's just cheese, like uniformly cheese is the thing I miss the most. Yeah.
Have you tried any of the vegan cheeses?
I have. So actually, part of my Christmas gift to my parents was to offer to cook, because my mom always does an amazing job, but she gets incredibly stressed. And because I am vegan and also have dietary restrictions, and my sister has long COVID, which is awful. And it's just like, I don't know what it is with COVID in our family. Like I had it like 65 times, and my sister had it once, but like some of the long COVID symptoms are insane, where she can't have anything that is from a bean, which takes tofu out because she can't have soy. She has this weird butter allergy. I think that was before COVID, where she just like all of a sudden got like really itchy. And my mom has some stuff that's just like intolerances or whatever. And I like know everybody's shit. So I was like, why don't I, as part of it, make a meal that everybody can have? Because I know everyone's weird dietary restrictions, including my own. And so I did, and I made like a vegan mac and cheese, and it was like a pumpkin based one, and it was like a little bit more on the sweeter side, and it was really good. But there's just ain't nothing like the real thing, baby.
So did you with that, did you use vegan cheese like in addition to like pumpkin? What kind of cheese? Like, do you remember the brand you used?
I don't remember it's like good something. It's pretty good, and it was like their mozzarella and their Parmesan. And the recipe for it was really good. Like the texture of it was really right, and it wasn't meant to be a mac and cheese replacement so much. Like it was meant to be a little bit more pumpkin flavored, but the replacements have gotten better since the first time I was vegan, and they're not bad, but it's just cheese, you know. It's just
No, I know. I know Mrs. Money one day went out and bought like, with the way I have to eat now, I try to get in like protein wherever possible. So like the Baby Bell cheese is a good one for me.
Yeah.
I can have like 3 of those cheeses and it's just straight protein. So so she one day was like, "Oh, I saw they have plant-based cheese. Like I figured we could try it." And I didn't love it. Like it wasn't a texture thing, it was a taste thing. Like I'm looking for a certain taste out of Baby Bell cheese, and it was like too sweet. It wasn't like salty or sharp enough. So that wasn't a hit. But I said to her, like, this is way more than like the year. I think it was when was the first year of COVID? 2020, right?
We all, like a bunch of you guys and I were all COVID vegan.
We started vegan that year before, obviously before anything went down, like, and then everything became extremely hard because it was hard to get stuff. But I remember in that period, there was nothing like that. Like, it was very slim. But I can tell you this, Kate, I liked the Daya shreds because I
Yes.
like those melt well for like pizza. But my favorite vegan cheese may have been the Miyoko's brand.
I do their cream cheese, so maybe I should give their regular cheese a try because their cream cheese is really good.
Yeah, their regular cheese was very good. And then we just used nutritional yeast as like Parmesan replacement,
Well played.
fairly cheap.
Well played.
But
So I know
Kate's
I'm late. Was Santa good to the big guy?
Santa was good to I actually didn't mention it. Santa was good to Little Money. He got a lot of stuff that he wanted. That he circled in the catalogs. When you'd ask him like, what do you want? He'd be like, just look in the catalog.
What catalog? Where do you find a catalog at?
Like Amazon sends one, Target sends one.
That's old school. I remember the JCPenney wish book would be like my shit. Like I would go through and circle when I was a kid. I didn't know they still sent those and did that stuff. I thought it was all digital. So that's awesome.
That was that JCPenney or Macy's, whatever that was like a phone book. That was massive.
It's crazy.
The Amazon one is like a small magazine. But they definitely send it. And then I think we got one from Target, and then maybe Walmart too. So he just circled a bunch of stuff and, Santa brought him what he wanted. I got some stuff I needed from him, and Mrs. Money ordered me like the Glass Jaw records and books that are coming out next year. She pre-ordered them for me, so those are coming.
Hell yeah.
So that's good. And Joe had mentioned that he got a car battery that he needed.
The sexiest items.
It was the gift that keeps on giving. It keeps him moving.
It wasn't even bottom shelf. It was mid-level battery. So it wasn't like I didn't keep out.
Nice.
Top shelf or medium shelf. But either way, it's not the well drinks. It's the name brand shit. We love that for you.
That's right. It's not premium, but it's name brand.
Nice. We'll take it.
And how about you, Kate? Everything was good. So you prepared the meal for Christmas, and did you get everything on your wish list?
I did. I didn't have a ton of stuff that I wanted, but what was like the biggest thing was my sister, because she's been out with COVID, she hasn't really been able to work. And she didn't tell my parents this, but because she hasn't been able to work, she has no income. And because she has no income, she has had free tuition to go back to school. And because she went to acting school, doesn't have like a formal degree, but she's been craving some stability in her life. So she's been going back to school the past 3 months. And because her acting school credits transfer, and she went like before in her early 20s when she was like deciding kind of what she wanted to do to make herself stable, she has enough credits that she'll graduate probably within the year that she starts. And my parents had no idea. I knew only after she had like basically started. And she was like, I think I'm going to try and hold off telling them till Christmas. And they like lost their minds. It was the best thing ever. It was so much fun. My mom just was like sobbing because it's been a very long year for my sister and for our family because of everything that's gone on with her. But long couple years, it's the worst, but that was really, really cool. And they had no clue. They were completely bowled over. And it's been so funny because it's like she'll message me when she gets out of classes or whatever. And so much of it has been online, but she'll like memo me. And when we were all together for Thanksgiving, I was like, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. Right. Like it was so hard to keep it a secret, but it was totally worth it. So she gave them just like mugs from she's in the CUNY system in New York. So she gave them mugs and they were like, what the hell is this? Like, whatever. And she got to tell them. And it was the best gift that they could have gotten and that she could have given herself, which is cool. But I did good. I got the usual, some gift cards, some cash, some socks, some Christmas pajamas. The compulsories got checked. My car battery is fine, so I didn't need to go like mid-level or anything like that to my knowledge or anything. So so it was really cool. It was a really special moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that everybody had a great Christmas. And we're on our way to the new year. So this is, Kate, we were saying at the beginning of the show, and it never, it didn't hit me until honestly tonight. This is our last post show for the year. So we've got a bunch to discuss coming up with Dynamite. But we of course have to check up on what happened on Rampage, Holiday Bash, as well as Collision. That way we round the week out of our Continental Classic. Unfortunately, without Ryan here, we won't have a song tonight. Is that right?
Sad.
Okay, I see head shaking. Yes. So I just want to make sure nobody was gonna surprise us. There's still time.
I mean, maybe someone could see what maybe they could pull together on the commercial break, but that's just a lot of pressure. It feels very much like Ryan's thing, but considering he steals all my spots that I like to call, it might be a nice spot of revenge. You know what I mean?
Just do it in the form of a musical. Just kind of sing every word without it making any sense. Just sing, like to Oklahoma or something.
I could.
Throw the names in there really fast. Don't give out any numbers or rankings or anything like that.
Yeah, it wasn't so much a ranking last week. And as I was digesting it after our show, I felt like our criticism was apt. If you don't know what we're talking about, you can go on our social media. We're now doing some like fun reels and stuff, and you can see what Ryan's raps were and our reactions to them, or you could just check it out on this very YouTube channel. But it wasn't so much like a rankings as it was a tribute to the people that were in it. Like it didn't really give us an indication on what the standings were.
We're more confused after he finished than anything else. Like I was just like, you said the names. I think he went so fast. It was just
he did.
You can check out the reel, as Kate said, or the short, depending on what you're watching. The short's on the YouTube, the reel's up on the Instagram. It's on our TikTok, Twitter, all over the place. So feel free to check it out. It's the quick cut with some of our reactions spliced in, which is very funny. Thank you, Asian Joe, for putting that together. So why don't we touch up on the Rampage and Collision results and anything we'd like to talk about there. So just going through Rampage right now, we had Orange Cassidy defeating Rocky Romero to retain the International Championship. I still think Rocky Romero was very confused by the challenge that got thrown in front of him, but it's okay. And then we had a group hug afterward, so everything's good. We had a Chris Stat interview backstage, and Stoke came up and sort of offered his services, so we'll see what's going on there. Brian Cage and Keith Lee had a promo ahead of Collision. Roddy Strong was on the mic for the Kingdom's entrance, and then the Kingdom wound up defeating the Hardys, who've been down on their luck apparently. So we'll see what happens with the Hardys. We had a Ruby Soho interview backstage, and her and Angelo Parker look like they're getting a little closer. Saraya does not like that. Boy, does she not like that. Sky Blue defeated Queen Aminata. Sky Blue still don't believe that. And then Vikingo defeated Black Taurus to retain the AAA Mega Championship, and that was the show. So I'll throw it to the floor. Does anybody have anything that they would like to mention about Rampage?
Rocky Romero was great, and he should have won the international title.
That's a hot take.
It is a hot take. my reason for saying that is not only that Rocky is great, but this second Orange Cassidy title run doesn't feel like it's necessarily gone anywhere, and I should hold on to my seat, I guess, with what we're gonna see out of this Continental Triumvirate title. But it would be really cool to have something that I always thought that was going to be ambassadorial, and I was like, Rocky Romero is the most ambassadorial guy in the whole wide world with CMLL and New Japan and everything he's doing for the Strong brand. He's had appearances on ROH. He's back here in AEW. So I love Rocky. I think the world of him. I'm not just saying that because I have an interview that drops with him tomorrow, but I know.
No, I'm just kidding.
Sneaky plug that got in there, but I really do. I want them to pick something for Orange Cassidy to do with this, because it just feels like his first reign was so successful, and the second reign just kind of is just floating around. Like there's not a lot of direction. So I think it would have been really cool to give it to Rocky. I knew they weren't going to. You probably aren't going to do that on a random Rampage, but I think one of two things has to happen, and that Orange Cassidy needs to drop it, or Orange Cassidy needs a little bit more of a story cooking in here. But Rampage was pretty decent. Sky Blue has now at least picked a side, so her getting wins over people is starting to make sense. She's come a long way this year, I think. But yeah, it was a decent episode. Black Taurus is ridiculous. Like, of all the luchadors that have kind of been circling through the door, him and Vikingo I think are my favorites. But man, is he a hard-hitting son of a bitch for a luchador. So very, very cool. Very, very cool.
So I just want to touch back up, and Joe, I want to hear what you have to say too, but I do want to just touch back on your thoughts with the current Orange Cassidy run. And I'm going to say maybe let's I think I'm tempering my expectations a little bit, because we know how many people are currently wrapped up in this Continental Classic, right? So it's like, I feel like some of those players could probably have been involved in something with Orange Cassidy, but there's so many people that have been involved that it's like, how can we separate those two things, right? So I'm hoping that after the new year, maybe we'll pick up some sort of story for Orange Cassidy when there's more people available, and also some people returning, which we'll talk about when we get to Dynamite. But your point's totally valid, Kate. Like, it just seems like, what are we doing with this title right now? But I think it's unfortunately just the timing of everything, right? It's like, we've got this big tournament that's had to take us through the last 2 months, which I've loved the tournament way more than I thought I would. So I'm okay with it, but yeah, I want to see something go on with this. This title needs to feel important again. You know what I mean? So I think once we get past the new year, we'll hopefully see that.
And to your point, like, the tournament's just also realistically eating up a lot of screen time, which is inevitable. So if you are going to have it on somebody that is just having kind of random defenses, Orange Cassidy is the guy to have it. Like, he's perpetually over. People are not going to be mad if you just throw a match with him in it together. So that's a good call. But yeah, I'm curious to know what Joe thinks as far as like who should be the next international title holder, or what's going on with this reign.
That I don't know so much. The question I had was the Black Taurus. Has he been on ROH mostly, or was he on ROH previously?
He's mostly been in Mexico. I think he was on the pay-per-view for ROH with a great match against Vikingo, but he has not been kicking around the AEW system.
Okay. I was curious. I thought maybe they should have built that out, promoted that a little bit more to get people like myself who aren't as familiar with who this person is and why I should care about why he's in the main event of Rampage. I mean, I thought maybe he did some more ROH before that, but since I don't watch the product as much as you do.
No, yeah, I mean, they just they're just working in this AAA, mega championship because they've got Vikingo available, right? So I guess it's like, hey, why not have a defense for Ring of Honor, since their world championship can't be defended because it's part of this Continental Classic, but also, a lot of people probably didn't see that Ring of Honor pay-per-view if they're not an Honor Club member. So why not give it away for free, essentially, on TV? You know what I mean? So can't fault him for doing it sort of twice in a row. But yeah, I mean, Taurus has such a cool look. It's just such a wild look to see him and be like, this guy's wrestling like this. Like it's crazy. I showed the little guy a picture of him and he was like, what? I was like, yeah, that's a wrestler.
I think that's why I like him so much. I feel like he stands out in Lucha World so much. Like there's not really anybody who bases that way. I mean, Gringo Loco is like the base god, right? And like Penta's a bigger, like harder hitting guy, but like there's something with Taurus where it does just like pop out a little bit more. But I have a question for the floor.
Sure.
Do we think that maybe an entering program for Ospreay is the international title because he has the Forbidden Door match with Orange Cassidy to build off of? It would be a huge win for him. He could defend it against someone else really cool at All In. And if he wants to keep working Japan and other promotions, like then you could kind of weave that into New Japan programming pretty easily. And he's in the UK, right? Like I think there's a lot of productive things there, but Orange Cassidy and the international title are like so synonymous at this point that I'm kind of like, who's the guy to take it off of him? And Ospreay, like it feels to me like Swerve is being heated up for like the next probably long-term champion. I think Joe's probably going to be the next one. And I don't think you want a short reign for Swerve. So I don't think you're going to be like, and then he loses to Ospreay at All In. Like that timing doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, Will Ospreay in the international title picture could be kind of fun.
Yeah, I don't. Well, see, here's what's going to be interesting, at least to me, is, what is this Continental Championship going to be, right? Because depending on what that is, that could be something for, Ospreay to get heated up in. It could certainly be the International Championship, but the Continental title is 3 promotions belts rolled into one, right? So it's got a little bit of history of, like New Japan and Ring of Honor and AEW rolled into it. So it's like, yeah, that could also be a really good mix for Ospreay, if you ask me. Just because there's so much there, but I think either one could probably be a good entrance for him, but that's also so tough too, Kate, because it's like, Ospreay's such a huge name. It's like, do you put a second? And I say this not to sound like a slight to the title, but do you put him in a secondary title picture? Do you throw him in immediately to some sort of larger picture mix? Like it just depends on what's going to go on with MJF, right? Because I still don't really know how his shoulder is. You know what I mean? Like we'll talk about it later, but tonight he showed a look with his shoulder that we haven't seen him use before, right? Like they had a brace on his shoulder. And could it be for a little bit of story? Sure. But could be for real too, because the last I had heard was they weren't sure if he was going to need surgery or not. And maybe he does. And this is just going to be what he does to get him through. And then maybe he has to lose this title to Joe Saturday and he has to take time off to get surgery and heal or whatever. So it's like, who knows, because that we've talked about it so much here. There are so many people in line for that title with MJF. And then you've got Swerve who entered that picture last week, and Swerve's got a ton of shit on his plate before he can get a look at that title. It's like there's just so much shit going on. And I think part of the uncertainty for me is like really legitimately how healthy is MJF?
Sure. That makes sense. And I think the other thing with the Continental Classic and this like Triple Crown title is I don't think that they've said like, is it 3 belts and you're going to defend them all separately? Is it 1 belt? Like, I don't think they've ever given us clarity on what that means. So like, because Eddie Kingston put 2 of them on the line, it kind of feels like all 3 of them should be defended separately. But are they all rolled into one is an interesting thing that I don't think they've clarified. And I think that goes a long way. And I wish they would, because I think that goes a long way in clarifying like how important that Continental title is, because if you're inheriting 3 separate titles, that's like a very different thing. And because we never really got off the ground with the Real World's Champion stuff that Punk was doing, like, it would be nice to have something that's supposed to feel extremely important on Collision. So whatever they end up doing with it, whether it's all 3 smooshed into one or they're going to be defended separately, I just hope that whatever, I feel like when you call something Continental, it automatically has that like mid-card feel, to your point, because it's not global or whatever. But I hope it feels like a really important piece of Collision, because I think it could use it, because the TBS title is mostly there and it's in a very fun program, but like Christian's not like a workhorse champion, so it'd be nice. Right. So we'll see.
Joe, what do you think about the Ospreay prospect?
I like that, because you don't necessarily need to thrust him into obviously the crowded title picture already. And I think, giving him that belt when I felt like Orange Cassidy winning the belt to begin with, for kind of the hot potatoing of people being injured at the time and all that stuff. You can maybe kind of have it solidified with one person like Ospreay. I think that'd be a good idea. I like that. There's so many other belts, and the international belt is, I don't know where you rank the international belt, if it's above the TNC championship now, where I felt like the TNC championship would probably be like the second one. But I feel like the international belt's more prestigious than the CNC title anymore. And then the Continental Classic, belt, Triple Crown, I don't know where that falls in this lineage of or hierarchy of belts.
You know what's funny? I'm going to say something now that may be a hot take, but this is where the rankings would make sense again. Are we... this is not a joke, just in hopes that we can do rankings wraps again. But this would be a legitimate reason that you would have rankings, because you'd have 1 through 5 and say any one of these people sort of has a viable right to challenge for one of these belts. Like, this is where it makes sense. Early on, it sort of didn't really make sense, because you really just had the title belt and the tag team titles, and it sort of wasn't really making sense. Like, if you really want to sort of have your rankings mean something, now that you have multiple belts, you could resurrect your rankings, come up with a legitimate way that they're determined, whether it's strictly wins, losses, sort of power, rankings as far as who your opponents are, whatever. And then basically say that, okay, these top 5 sort of have earned a legitimate shot at a title, whatever. Like, it would sort of make sense, because now I feel like more than recently, like, we've even said this about the women, right? It's like, how the fuck does this person get a title shot? Like, where does this fall? Like, so it's just funny.
Do it the way that ROH used to do it too, of like the claiming your division and calling your shot thing. I think what hurts a little bit there now is you don't have Dark to. I always thought that was so funny when people were like, Dark is just to pad people's records. I was like, well, yeah, that seems like a great use of AEW Dark. Like you have independent talent that get a paycheck, and you have people that are making their case. I think the complaint was not enough of that made its way on TV, but like that idea that, hey, this person has a bunch of wins, I thought was really good. I like it when wins and losses determine stuff, and that's part of why I'm so in on this tournament. Is I like stuff like that. So, but I also see that Tony is up way past his bedtime in the chat, so I just thought I would say hi because he said my name. Merry Christmas, Tony.
We were talking about more content. Maybe we can develop our own Mark Order power rankings.
Ooh, as wrapped by the Mark Order.
I mean, we could pull together our own.
If I don't know, will people take him serious then? If we have people rapping in cowboy hats?
I mean, is there anything more serious?
That's fair.
We would just have to make sure things actually get ranked in them. But I see your point. But it would be cool if they had just done that in the beginning, and we talked about that extensively, so we don't have to retread it. But like, if they had just said this was a heat chart and not like a live by the rankings, die by the rankings thing, that would have allowed them the flexibility to work their way around stuff with story, but also gave you some sort of indicator as things went on. But I'm intrigued, and I'm intrigued too because that extra wave of free agents is hit the market again too. So we'll see your Dolph Ziglers and your Mustafa Ali's of the world and stuff where they land.
Yep, and we have a couple notes for the wrap up of the show about some of the free agents, especially with the news over the last week about some of them becoming available. So we'll talk on that. But to close up our rankings talk, I always the one beef I had with it, and there were a lot of beefs with the rankings, but the one beef I had was, how come no wrestler ever used it as an argument? Like, no wrestler ever was like, I'm ranked second, I deserve a shot at this belt. Like, nobody ever said, here's why I want a shot, I'm number 2 in the rankings. Like,
I felt like Wardlow did at one time.
Maybe. But you would think that anybody in the rankings who would want a shot at something would just go and be like, hey, I've been ranked 3, in the male division for the last 3 weeks. I really think I deserve a, TNT title shot or something. Like, it never happened. There were a lot of beefs, but that was just you think that's a layup.
Primary, especially when you do have secondary titles. It almost makes more sense in the current landscape to have rankings than it did then.
Yeah.
Like if you were like, look, I'm ranked number 2. The person ranked number 1 is clearly got their business with the world title. I think that means I deserve a shot at a TV title. Makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. So yeah, I'm with you.
Well, Joe, is there anything else you wanted to call out about Rampage before we move to Collision?
Nope. Let's collide.
All right, let's collide real quick. We had Danielson versus Claudio Castagnoli in our Continental Classic tournament match. That was the only match we had in the whole tournament that went to a time limit draw. So each man came out with 1 point, but Danielson controlled his destiny and advanced to the Blue League finals. Claudio Castagnoli at that point was out. We then had Top Flight and Action Andretti versus the Acclaimed for the Trios Championship. The Acclaimed won that to retain. We also had a special message from Hook. He says he'll fight Wheeler Yuta for his title, but he wants to do it in New York at World's End. So we're going to get Hook and Wheeler Yuta for the FTW Championship. I was just shocked to hear Hook actually speak. Really caught me off guard there.
I don't know why I didn't assume he had a really thick New York accent. Like, I don't know why I didn't assume that, but he kind of does, and it rules.
Yeah, complete sense. Let's see. We had Keith Lee and Brian Cage. Keith Lee defeated Brian Cage. That was just 2 giant men slapping meat. And then afterwards, Keith Lee grabbed the mic and said someone took him out months ago with the cinder block. He's been trying to send a message to him, but apparently he hasn't been listening. So he's going to go to Dynamite and make himself clear. He's got a house to tear down, and he'll do it brick by brick. So clearly we're talking about Swerve. Renee Young spoke with Tony Storm, setting up...
Renee who?
Oh, Paquette, but we're not there yet. I'm not all the way set up. Ravishing Renee Paquette. It was just a promo setting up the title match at World's End. By the way, if neither of you had seen the reel or the short or whatever, they've been doing great social video work lately. The one they had with Tony Storm about some of her holiday traditions were fucking fantastic, and they're all in black and white, which is perfect. But the one was one that had me laughing was they were asking a lot of people, who would you like to meet under the mistletoe? And she said Desi Arnaz, but you've got to wait in line. Like, that was so perfect. The other one though that she did was all her, and I think they had asked her about what do you do for like the holidays or New Year's or whatever, and she said we had an annual key party, but unfortunately we had to put a stop to it. And then they asked her what her favorite holiday food was right after that. And she said, oh, I always enjoy a bit of the spotted dick. And she said, unfortunately, or she didn't say unfortunately. She was like,
why we also had to stop the key party.
Yeah, that's why we had to stop the key party. So it was very funny. Those have been great. Just wanted to shout out Tony Storm. Continues to be amazing. Christian Cage went out with Nick Wayne. He introduced the matriarch, which is Mrs. Wayne. And she had, talked about, sort of why she did what she did, blah, blah, blah. Big Bill and Ricky get interviewed, talking about Kenny Omega. Jericho shows up to say that even though Omega's out and the match is off for now, he's got a contract for a match and he's going to get that match at some point with a partner he'll find somewhere. So we will fast forward to Dynamite and talk about that. But we had Brody King and Danny Garcia in our Continental Classic match. And Danny Garcia winds up defeating Brody King via pinfall. He will not be shut out. So Brody King is out. Garcia gets his 3 points. And then after the match, the lights go out. When they come up, Malachi Black and Buddy Matthews are in the ring, dragging Danny Garcia over to Brody. And then Daddy Magic got up to help, but he gets taken out by Buddy. And then before they could do anything, FTR hits the ring and they run off. And Dax, basically says they're going to do FTR versus House of Black for the first time ever. Sky Blue and Julia Hart lose to Thunder Rosa, making her return here. Thunder Rosa and Abaddon win. Eddie Kingston versus Andrade El Idolo in the main event for the Blue League tournament match. And Eddie Kingston overcomes the odds and defeats Andrade El Idolo via pinfall. And that sets up the finals that we had tonight, Eddie Kingston versus Bryan Danielson, to see who will go to the World's End pay-per-view. And we'll talk about that outcome once we get to Dynamite. So, ladies and gents, I'll say this. We don't talk really ratings here because ratings are what they are, but this Continental Classic apparently has been doing really good for AEW on Saturday nights. They said again their ratings were sort of up. They're attributing it to the Continental Classic because they've seen it up over the past few weeks. I think maybe Thunder Rosa helped a little bit for the people who've missed Thunder Rosa, but all in all, I thought this was a really good episode of Collision.
Yeah, the past 2 weeks of Collision have been excellent. Julia Hart's also a draw, which is pretty cool. Like she's been helping the ratings, which I love to see, obviously with women getting a little bit more love in AEW, but that photo that was going around of her and Sky just like looking at each other as these extremely attractive spooky witches types was really fun. What I loved about this Collision was all 3 Continental Classics had kind of underdog baby faces, and all 3 of them felt so different. My only complaint with Claudio and Danielson, which was not match related because the match was brilliant, but to have the only draw be something that doesn't affect the outcome anyway. Like if Danielson had just beat Claudio and the fact that they went to a draw, like your only draw has no effect on the math is kind of a weird choice to use it. But I loved how much that match was evenly matched. And then in the last 5 minutes, Claudio is like, I got to start going for this fucker's eye. And he starts going for the eye because he's trying to win the match. And the neutralizer in this, the kick out from that was insane. Like the way this got hastened at the end and then Claudio going for the pin and he's just running out of time. While I don't like that they went to a draw for the purposes of the tournament, I love what it does for the story between Claudio and Danielson. The fact that they're the only ones in this who are on even playing grounds. And Danielson getting the better of him in this anyway, I just thought was so well done. And the fact that Claudio wasn't going to resort to the dirty tactics until it meant that he absolutely had to. I just thought that was brilliantly done. Danielson and Brody, or Daniel Garcia and Brody, I thought was great because Brody's he didn't do the big man, why won't this guy stay down stuff that we see so often, but he was just genuinely shocked over and over again when Daniel Garcia wouldn't stay down. And I loved his selling in that match. I thought it was brilliant. And then Eddie versus Andrade, God, they just beat the ever-living piss out of each other. And Eddie getting the win and selling the knee after that drop kick, I thought was really, really great. all three of them felt like underdogs, but they felt like completely different underdogs because of who they were against and the stories that were in play. And that to me is like the beauty of a tournament. I'm so over the Acclaimed. Put Bowens on a singles run, have them drop the trios titles. I'm over it. But the women did great. Glad Thunder Rosa's back. I thought this episode was really, really, really strong. And last week's was basically perfect too. So good shit.
And the post-match antics from House of Black, did it also, now this is something that I noticed, I'm not sure if maybe it was just me, I don't remember if I was a little stoned, but did it look like Brody maybe was a little unsure of if he wanted to take out Danny Garcia?
Oh, I didn't read that, but that's interesting. Did you get that, Joe?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was that or if he was just stalling for time, but there was it felt like a hesitation, and maybe through battling through the C2 as a single competitor, Brody started to respect some of these opponents and didn't want to resort back to his House of Black ways. But
it just seemed to me like Malachi had to sort of talk him into it, right? Like it looked like he wasn't sure, and then Malachi sort of stepped up and was like, hey, sort of jawing at Brody and pointing to Danny. It just looked a little like maybe Brody wasn't sure if this is really what he wants to do.
I'm into that, or maybe he doesn't want to face FTR and Garcia. Like if that's like this guy just beat him and now here comes FTR, best tag team in the world. Like maybe he's not feeling great about his trio. But I think that would be a really cool story if it was just like FTR and Garcia for a short program of like, hey, you're not a sports entertainment anymore. You figured out you're a pro wrestler. And hopefully before we pass you off to Danielson, which is what I'm hoping the long-term plan is, like, come with us. Like we're the most pro wrestler motherfuckers in the game. Could be really, really fun. So I like that thinking though of like, hey, I had this breakout singles run and now I don't know if I want to go back with these guys who are real weird and evil and spit poisonous mist at people.
Spooky. Joe, what do you think about anything on Collision?
I'm trying to think of the things that Kate didn't touch on. So I thought this might have been Mother Wang's best talking segment, but the bar kind of low. She doesn't need to have a big role other than sitting there next to Christian, and hopefully that kind of comes to an end here.
You boo a mother? I love that. Because it's true. Edge beat the shit out of her son. Like that's excellent.
She's justified.
She good.
I kind of have wished that maybe they would have saved. No, the Thunder Rosa's coming out the week prior to help. No, to help Willow. Was Willow she helped out? She came in the ring.
Abaddon.
I'm sorry, Abaddon. I kind of wish they would just let her like in ring return happen at Collision and not as a run in. But other than that, I all the other things that Kate pointed out were great. I thought maybe they'd use the draw or the time, the time limit draw. I thought they would use it earlier in the tournament with whether it's a Jay White loss or a Swerve loss or something to kind of help protect them more. But yeah, I understand why they did it with the BCC.
Well, it does set up quite a night of action that we got on Dynamite tonight, the New Year's Smash edition of Dynamite.
So we went from a holiday bash to a New Year's Smash.
Yeah, we're having a bash, and now we're gonna smash the new year.
I hope there's not like a Valentine's Day rash. That would not good for anybody.
Maybe if you ask Timeless Tony Storm,
the spotted dick.
Well, we have like 11 months until we have a Monster Mash, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Monster Mash. I thought they actually had a name for their Halloween show. Maybe not. Oh well, either way. There's a lot to discuss from the outcome of Dynamite tonight, setting up for an interesting pay-per-view, which we'll run that card down to after we get through Dynamite. We've got news and notes, a lot of stuff happening from the past week in the world of AEW. So we're going to take a short break here, get a drink, run to the bathroom, do what you got to do. But if you're just hanging out, why don't you listen to some of the other words from the other fine shows that are part of this Shining Wizards Network.
Thank each and every one of you for tuning in every Monday night to listen to The Shining Wizards. If you'd like to continue to support us outside of listening, we've got a few ways for you to do that. If you shop at Amazon, go over to amazon.shiningwizards.com, do your shopping as usual, and when you make your purchase, a little bit of that purchase price will go back to support the show. If you like to wear t-shirts, merch.shiningwizards.com will take you to our Pro Wrestling Tees store, where we've got over a dozen great designs from over 11 years of professional wrestling podcasting. You can become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/wizardspodcast, where each and every week we call out your name as one of our show producers, and the more you support us, the more things that you're entitled to receive, and believe me, they are fantastic. If you can't support us monetarily, if you don't shop at Amazon, that's absolutely fine. Continue to listen to us wherever you listen to us on the World Wide Web, and make sure you like, rate, review, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Doesn't cost you anything, helps us out, and we can continue to bring you the love fest that is The Shining Wizards.
What's up, folks? It's your boy, the Impact Player, Mr. Philly Ray, inviting all of you to check out the Turnbuckle Throwbacks Wrestling Podcast. Join us as we cover all things current in the world of pro wrestling, as well as paying homage to the old school, the Squared Circle. So listen in and find out why we are the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment broadcasting. Find us on all social media platforms and anywhere you get your podcast from. And as always, we are the proudest members of the Shining Wizards Network and Rant Entertainment Media.
Are you tired of being lied to every day by the mainstream media?
Do you want to know what's really going on in the world?
Do you want to make up your own mind about things and not be told what to think or say?
Then listen to Inconclusive Breakdown, a weekly anti-PC look at the world of entertainment and current events, brought to you without censorship or filters.
You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts, BitChute, and on ShiningWizardsNetwork.com.
And also, we're a proud member of the Shining Wizards Network.
Got 30 minutes to kill?
Come check out 30 Screams or Less, where we review a horror movie in 30 minutes or less. We cover new movies and old ones too.
We'll give our honest thoughts on the movie, good or shit, as well as a rating of each one that we watch.
New episodes weekly, available on the Shining Wizards Network and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Corey.
Come check us out at 30 Screams or Less.
G'day guys, my name is Thomas, one half of the Broadcast Podcast. With our podcast, we go back and watch wrestling events from WWE, WWF, WCW, ECW, AEW, and many other wrestling promotions. You can check us out on Twitter at The Broadcast, that's TheBrokast, and you can also download all episodes on Apple Podcast, Castbox, Castro, and many other podcast apps.
If you like your music heavy, then check out Radioactive Metal on the Shining Wizards Network. For over 16 years now, Radioactive Metal has been one of the longest running podcasts. Over the years, we've interviewed some legendary metal acts, had some awesome discussions, and cranked a hell of a lot of tunes. So join your cool Uncle Snowy and his co-host Aaron for the audio mosh pit that is Radioactive Metal here on the Shining Wizards Network.
Well, the action is underway!
What's up, everyone? When on the Shining Wizards Network, be sure to check out Wrestling Night in Canada. If we're not recording another kick-ass podcast,
Or playing in punk bands.
Or recording kick-ass heavy metal albums,
then we're sitting back, we're grabbing a couple brews, and going over everything to do in the world of pro wrestling.
because we're from Winnipeg, you idiots.
The Mark Order Podcast is the only show you need if you're looking for dedicated coverage of everything AEW on the Shining Wizards Network. Join us live on YouTube every Wednesday night at 10:15 p.m. Eastern after Dynamite to chat along with the show. If you can't join us live, listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on all social channels at MarkOrderPod and use the hashtag #JoinTheMarkOrder, because if you don't find us,
we will find you.
I'm Kevin Rowe.
I'm Al Day.
And we're a couple of down under pounders that co-host Rogue Day Dots, an action figure collecting podcast where we talk about, well, just about anything that tickles our fancy at any given moment.
We're grumpy old men, and sometimes people get on our nerves. And when you get on our nerves, guess what? You get off the lawn.
Get off my lawn, asshole! We also go on a little bit of a mission. We go back and we're grading every wrestling figure line that's out there. I'm talking LJNs. I'm talking Jacks. I'm talking Hasbros. Who doesn't like a little Hulkaplex? It's a Gorilla Brain Wrestling podcast production found on the Shining Wizards Network.
I'm Duke Bags.
Kevin Rowe.
And together we are the co-hosts of Your Duke and Road. If you want to hear about some terrible wrestling shows, we got you covered.
Well, we talk about good ones, too.
We're currently talking about the death of WCW.
I know what we're fucking talking about. Sometimes we get guest spots, like from the Taskmaster. I like to listen to the Year of Duke and Rope podcast. They're funny guys. I like when they talk about the Nards plows. I like Nards plows. That's a good move. And I like the Dungeon of Doom. You know, sometimes I call my butt the Dungeon of Doom. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Oklahoma.
Let me tell you a little bit about my favorite wrestling podcast. All right. It's a podcast from two men, Duke Bags, Kevin Rowe. They talk about professional wrestling. It's a man's sport. All right. And who better to talk about a man's sport than Duke? Oklahoma.
And once in a while, Vince Russo stops by.
Oh, you piece of shit! If you're not listening to the Year of Duke and Rope podcast in the back with the boys, you piece of shit, I don't know what you're doing. It's, you gotta slide one in there. If you're a man, you're talking about something only a man can do. You're talking about sliding one in there. Bro, take the time to slide one in there. All right, bro, you piece of shit. Slide one in there. A Gorilla Brain Wrestling podcast production that you can find on the Shining Wizards Network.
All right, we're back here on the Mark Order podcast. And before we get to Dynamite, just want to take care of a little bit of business. Make sure you are following us on all of our socials at Mark Order Pod on X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Follow us on all those. Check out the link tree in our bios, and you can find links to all the other places that we're on. Make sure to go and follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on YouTube.
Yeah.
Sign up for alerts and all that kind of stuff so you never miss a show. And you can also go back and check out the archives. And remember, we're trying to get to 500, and the special number, when we get to 500, we're going to raffle something off for a winner. And you guys know what that is, so we're not going to mention it right now, but you guys know what that is. So just make sure you're signed up and you're part of the 500 when we do our big raffle.
Be shy about it, okay? Ryan will write a custom song about you for this show, and it'll be great. You'll have your own custom rap all about you from Ryan. That is the gift at 500. Big time winner chicken dinner.
Joe, that's not what we discussed.
So subscribe and tap that bell for notifications because you don't want to miss it.
First time hearing this.
Yeah, that's not what we discussed and agreed on.
Oh, so only Ryan can revise history? In his fancy little blog?
Yeah, that's his gimmick.
Yeah, you're not a middle-aged white male.
That's right.
First of all, yes, I am. Second of all,
listen, Kate.
People should know that before you raffle off me going on dates with people, okay?
Wait. Hey. All I could say is this. In true fashion, like much of today, I don't think you have full control of your own body here. So or the rights to your body. So, just stick with the way things are currently going in a lot of the parts of this country, and we'll get to 500. We'll get there.
Maybe I'll just go back to all of my exes, like Sammy Guevara goes back to Chris Jericho every fucking time that he comes
Hey, we're
back.
not there yet. Hey, come on. Anyway, make sure you're subscribing on YouTube. Subscribe if you're listening in podcast form too. We have all those links in our link tree. And if you'd like to support us with some of your hard-earned dollars, make sure to go over to our Pro Wrestling Tee store. We have a link in the link tree, or you can go to prowrestlingtees.com/markorderpod, or just search the Mark Order Podcast on Pro Wrestling Tees, and you'll find our store. And something I found out about today, there's going to be a New Year's sale happening. So from the 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern through January 2nd at 1 p.m. Eastern, you can put in promo code NY2024 to get 20% off. So if you're looking to order a shirt on sale, that's going to be the time to do it. But you can get a shirt anytime. We have all 4 shirts in our store, 2 front prints, 2 double-sided prints. My personal favorite, the 2 mics double-sided. Just love the way it looks with the chest logo, and then on the back you've got the big hand logo. My favorite. That's definitely my favorite. So
My
make sure you
favorite
have,
too, but you should get all of them realistically.
Get all.
Like just buy all of them.
and I think I said it before, like if you need a holiday gift for somebody, like just get them one. Even if they don't know who we are or what we do, just get them one. They'll love it because it's a gift. And
They'll
any
be
of the
like,
money you
"I
spend
think-"
there. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
like, our logo is really cool. So people will be like, wow, even if I don't know what the Mark Order Podcast is, I want this t-shirt. And the reason we know that, Ant, is because there are definitely people who wanted our stickers that have no idea who the hell we are. So
Oh,
we are that
100%.
cool. Just saying.
100%. So yeah, make sure to grab your shirt. And we thank you, anybody who's already bought a shirt, anybody who's going to buy a shirt in the future. And Kate, as you said before, we'll plug it again at the end, but you have an interview coming out tomorrow.
I do. So I was working for my.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, Jesse Ozog. Good to see you, pal. Everybody's waving tonight. That's right. No stick in the muds tonight. Good
Nope.
to see you, Jesse.
Unanimous waving.
Sorry, Kate. I had to say hi to Jesse.
No, you never have to apologize for that. Jesse is the priority here. But I am doing a feature that is like a wrestling around the world feature, because I think wrestling has just been very cool on a global level. And so I talked to Rocky Romero, the king of brokering interpromotional and international relationships, which is about the coolest way I could think to start off this series. And then next Tuesday will be the Australia episode. We talked to the good people at PWA, as well as a couple of content creators on the Australia side that are heavily involved in the scene. And it was very cool. Everybody in the world in Australia, I learned, loves Robbie Eagles from TMDK. Like, his name came up within 10 minutes of talking to everybody who I talked to. So that was really cool. But I learned a lot about a couple of talents there. Their women's wrestling scene is extremely strong. A woman named Jessica Troy there, a woman named Delta there. Tag scene is also on fire. So very cool, and a lot to learn, because just like topography wise and geographically, it's such a different landscape than here. It's not like you can really like put together a loop in Australia. Like, that's not how it works. So a lot to be learned from that episode. But yeah, Rocky dropping tomorrow, and then Australia on Tuesday.
Well, a ton of fun, so make sure to check that out. And I'm going to plug, I had a recent appearance on ROH Revelry with Milwaukee Tom. Sadly, guys, I don't know if William Mercier Jr. likes me because he didn't appear. I think it's me.
You know what it is? He just has like a really aggressive disposition, and he
Do I
probably
dig him
felt
a little bit?
I think he just like, I think you have a really vibrant presence, and he's such an alpha that he felt threatened by that. But he if you've ever met William Mercier Jr., you just know that he's just like not to be messed with, man. Like that guy is brutal. So
no, we're both just a couple of bald-headed alphas just trying to make it in this world. Yeah, I think it's me. But me and Milwaukee Tom had a blast. It was a lot of fun getting to hang out with Milwaukee Tom. And it's the same thing. I'm going to say the same thing I said to Mrs. Money. I have a lot of fun with what we do on Wednesday nights, but it's always a totally different vibe when I get to go on to somebody else's show, because I try to steer the ship as best I can just to keep us on track. And I often pull us off, on side tracks and everything too, but it's way more fun when I don't have to pull back and I have to let whoever else worry about that. So I had a ton of fun just talking with Tom. We recapped, I don't remember if it was TV episode 117 or 118, but it was an Adam Cole retrospective. That was the week of television, and it ended with him becoming the world champion. So that was hilarious. And then we watched Final Battle 2013. Well, we didn't watch it. We watched it ahead of time and then talked about it. You could go hear everything that I had to say, but the one thing I'll say is it was just so fun to see the babies that those guys were.
Did you get to see baby Kyle O'Reilly? Was he on there? Because that's like my favorite.
He was in the retrospective, yes.
Did he have like the early 2000s haircut? Was it that Kyle O'Reilly where it was like a little moppy?
No, it wasn't necessarily moppy. But they were still just such babies. Like the first match of that final battle was Matt Hardy. That was when he was the self-proclaimed icon. He had a 12-match contract, and that was the last of his matches in his contract. And then he was facing Adam Page, not even Hangman Adam at that point.
Right. Okay.
So, and they were just such skinny, wimpy babies. It was so fun to watch that. So I had a blast with Tom. They are part of the Shining Wizards Network, that ROH Revelry show that he does with William Mercier Jr. So make sure to check that out. I had a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to the next time I get to do it, and maybe one day William Mercier Jr. will decide to, let down his guard a little bit, and come on and have some fun, and just hang out. Let me swoon over him a little bit.
Yeah, it's okay to be vulnerable, William Mercier Jr.
I just want to hang out with William Mercier Jr.
I know.
That's all I want to do.
Legit breaking kayfabe on this. He's so great. Like, he's just such a sweetheart. He's such a good dude. And I hope that we get to like go to shows with him again and see him again, because he just has I joke as with the alpha shit, but like he is just such a wonderful, genuine demeanor about him. So
yes, it was something that Tom and I talked about sort of off air, quote unquote, was the possibility of maybe us doing something like that again, getting a group together and going to something.
Hell yeah.
At some point. So that would be a lot of fun. But
I still need to go to a show with you guys. I haven't gone to a show yet with you.
Well, yeah.
That's true. Yeah, we haven't forgotten about you, Joe. You'd be involved in that clearly. But we have to find a reason to get you out here.
But you are going to New Japan.
Yes.
So jealous. You're going to Battle of the Valley, right?
I am. I bought my ticket, so I'll watch Ospreay and Okada go at it.
That's a great card too. You're gonna have fun.
It'll be fun.
Hell yeah.
So, gang, let's get into our standings with the Continental Classic, even though we've just recapped a bunch of it. But let's set the tone for Dynamite, because it clearly dealt with all the Continental Classic stuff. So, in the real quick, I just saw this in the chat. Hello, 1LT Photo. 1LT Photo saying Mark Ordersign coming at next week's Collision. Can he be the only person to now get a Mark Ordersign twice on Collision? And he does. We do have to get him onto this show. That was something that we said you got to get on. So I have not forgotten about it. Some timing things didn't make it work out. I also said that I'd get him a shirt, and then he went out and bought a shirt. So
Best.
if he gets on again, I'm gonna buy him a shirt. I would like to buy him a shirt. So
What
anyway.
happens when you serve in the photo brigade like he did? You're just a good guy. You're just a good guy. Fun accident that happened at Fight Club. Our moderator went to block somebody else, but accidentally blocked this handle that he's on. And so we are trying to get you unblocked 1LT photo. I'm working on it. I promise. It's not as easy as it should be, but we're going to get you there. Here you get to be yourself. You don't have to make up an adjacent handle because we screwed up.
1LT, listen, Lieutenant photo, first lieutenant photo. I think clearly we know what's going on over at the other place. They don't respect your service record.
Well, we did actually promote him to colonel.
Well, it doesn't sound official, but I will say we'll never ban you here. And we appreciate your service and all you've done for this country. So, we see where you're loved. Thank you for your service. Anyway, so we rounded out week 5 of the Continental Classic tournament on Saturday night. So the results were from the Gold League. Jay White defeated John Moxley on last Wednesday's edition of Dynamite, the Holiday Bash. Swerve Strickland defeated Roosh, and Mark Briscoe defeated Jay Lethal. In the Blue League, Eddie Kingston defeated Andrade. Bryan Danielson and Claudio Castagnoli had a time limit draw, and Danny Garcia defeated Brody King. So in the Gold League, we had Mox, Swerve, and Jay White with 12 points. Roosh with 6, Mark Briscoe with 3, Jay Lethal with 0. Bryan Danielson had 10 points. Eddie Kingston had 9. Andrade had 9. Claudio with 7. Brody with 6. And Danny Garcia with 3. So Jay Lethal, the only person to be shut out of this tournament in either bracket. But we knew that we had the final setup for tonight. It was going to be Moxley, Swerve, and Jay White for a triple threat to determine the gold winner. And the Blue League was going to be a singles match, Danielson versus Kingston. And Kingston has never beaten Danielson in a one-on-one match. So a lot of things going on tonight at Dynamite. And to kick off the New Year's Smash edition, we jumped straight in to Jay White versus John Moxley versus Swerve Strickland in the Continental Classic Gold League final. And this one had everything you probably could have asked for out of this match. Storytelling with Moxley's knee. Jay White looked like he had enough left in the tank to sort of make it through. Swerve just continuing to be aggressive. But at the end, John Moxley wins by pinfall with the Death Rider on Jay White, winning the Gold League of the Continental Classic. So Moxley does move on to the World's End pay-per-view. We have yet to see who he's going to face at this point in the night. So we're going to pause there and get our take on this match only. And then we'll talk about what we get to at the end of the night to sort of set up the pay-per-view. So hold those thoughts, Kate and Joe. But this match itself, I'm going to throw it to Joe here first, Kate, only because I'm going to give you the honor when we get to Eddie Danielson. So, Joe, what did you think about this match first?
And I won't take too much of this because I know Kate probably has her list of spots, right?
Hey, this was like a 40-minute opener. There were a lot of spots to list if I was going to call it.
Are we just giving up on the gimmick of Jay White's name, Anthony?
Well, nobody stopped me.
You kept saying Jay White. I wasn't familiar who Jay White was.
What does your shirt say, Joe? Oh my gosh, that's a Jay White shirt itself. In fact, that's a Switchblade Jay White shirt. My goodness.
By the way, just so you know, this knife's name is Jay White, and that's how the knife is. So a lot of times on Christmas morning, as I was trying to open packages, I said, hold on, I've got to get Jay White. And then Anthony was like, Jay White? I was like, yeah, Jay White. And then he was like, isn't he a wrestler? I was like, yeah, what's his nickname? And he said, Switchblade. And then I flipped the knife open and he thought that was fun. So then multiple other times in the morning when he'd be like, can I open this? I'd say, sure. And then I'd say, but can you give me Jay White? You need to bring me Jay White. And he would go and get Jay White. He'd go and get the switch. Yeah. And it was, just so you know, it was locked. He was not picking up a loaded knife, able to just flip it open. It was locked. Anyway, so go ahead, Joe. We haven't given up on the gimmick. I just have to get it has to be done properly.
I liked the start of the match. It felt different than all the rest, as it should, being a 3-man singles match. I wasn't quite. I didn't realize there was going to be a no DQ match as well, and so that was different. I like the way I've talked about in the past, but the way Swerve can go from his fighting style with Mox of brawling and back scratching and biting fingers. He can do that level of dirtiness, but he can also do the out wrestle or try out wrestle Jay White when they're battling and they have their one-on-one moments. So I like the versatility that he offers that in that capacity. I also kind of wondering, like, if there's no DQ, why do we care for people for outside interference or not? Like, if we can use chairs and everything else, not that I wanted an outside interference involvement at all, but just something I thought about as we watched the match. And otherwise, I thought the outcome was probably the best and most predictable and safe choice when you knew you had Swerve going with Keith Lee coming up. So that kind of set in motion ahead of time. And once you kind of knew who the final two were in the Blue League, it only made sense for Mox to be in the final because he had stories written for both of them. But yeah, otherwise I was happy with it. It was a lot longer than I expected, and it delivered.
Yeah, a lot of false finishes in this one where it was like, oh, it's gonna be, oh, it's not. Like, I really thought this thing was ending like 5 times at different points down the stretch. Kate, what do you think?
I thought it was probably too long. This is the second time that they've had an overrun, and I'm like, you could have just trimmed some of some of this. But overall, I did think it was good. They don't do triple threats that often, and I think I'm glad that they had the outside interference rule in place because I did not want Keith Lee to come in and be the determining factor in this. Like, I wanted it to be decided between the 3 guys in the ring. So I think that's a good thing because I don't want it to feel like Swerve's destiny wasn't in his own hands in this. Like, I do think we're probably going to have a Swerve World title reign sooner than later. And I want there to be a story with Mox that's a little bit cleaner to come back to if they choose to do that. So I liked that part of it. Some nice spots in this. The high fly flow crossbody was really, really fun. The paradigm shift in this, whenever that gets kicked out of, is just bananas to me because it looks so good. But what I really liked was just Moxley's lariats. Just like, I don't think he uses blood as a crutch at all, but like sometimes when he's just like hard hitting, kind of almost leaning into what feels like the New Japan influence in him, like that strong style stuff, like his lariats were really, really rough in this, and he picked some really fun moments with them. Like he pretty much was about to, at the end, behead Jay White with that lariat and then hit the Death Rider to go home with. But this was really fun. I still think I would have preferred a draw in the initial meeting between the two of them because I just think it would have been, I would rather have just seen a Swerve and Moxley rematch, but you don't want Swerve losing twice like that. So I get why you have the triple threat. And I also think it was important to build Jay White back up after they had that really bad deal with him and MJF, in my opinion. Jay White, I thought, actually showed out a lot in this too, which was nice. He is one of the best at kicking out at 2.999. And that was responsible for a lot of those near falls that Ant was speaking to about this. But I think it probably could have been 5 minutes shorter, maybe 7 minutes shorter, and you could have ended this episode earlier. But I like that when they do have triple threats, which again is pretty rare, that they make them count. There's always a story justified reason. And this one being tournament math to get you there doesn't make a babyface look dumb for taking on a triple threat. So I thought it was well done. I thought it was the right results. I'm obviously thrilled with the outcome that we'll get to later of the tournament, but Moxley has been that guy this entire time. Him winning here makes perfect sense. And the viability that he could win and would be an ROH and New Japan champion makes a lot of sense, right? So that rules. I think there's big things on the horizon with Swerve, and I think Jay White has to probably get back to looking at what's going on with him and Bullet Club Gold, because I think we'll maybe get a trios push or maybe a re-engineering of that group.
Yeah, I mean, it's to your point with Jay White, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Bullet Club Gold now, because Jay White could easily, after this tournament, go back to Bullet Club Gold and be like, what are you guys doing? This is serious. We've got to, show out and show up. And it can't just be all, jokes and goofing around anymore. So they can go a few different ways with how they want to handle Jay White. I thought it was a good tournament by him. Fantastic tournament by Swerve. We'll get to the other match coming up later in the Blue League finals to talk about Mox, but this one went the way it needed to go for where they're going to go, and that should be interesting. We'll get there, but they do go to a video package to hype up the Blue League final between Danielson and Kingston. And then when they get back from break, Tony Schiavone's interviewing Shane Strickland backstage, and Swerve complains about being interviewed right after the match. He says his arm is falling off, but he wanted it so bad. The Continental Classic breathed life back into the whole business, and he's proved he's the one of the best in the industry. And he says Keith Lee's looking for him, and if he wants him in Long Island on Saturday, he's going to be there. And Tony has a contract that Keith left with him. Prince Nana has a fit about the contract not being approved, but Swerve pats him on the shoulder and says he'll see Keith on Saturday if he shows up. So we know now that we're going to get this sort of, feud hopefully come to an end here at World's End because it was left unresolved. But I think, in my opinion, and I'll definitely take your guys' opinion here, they had to sort of put the brakes on that feud because the Mogul Embassy was just a fucking mess at that point, right? You had the two goons who didn't pan out, and they brought in Prince Nana and his guys, and it was just sort of like a mess. They've righted that ship, so I think that this now looks a lot more viable for sort of like this blow off match because Keith Lee's back. He's looked good. Swerve has now risen up higher than he was before. So I'm excited for this one now because if they gave it to us a few months earlier, I think everybody's sort of like, where is this? But now it's I think this is the right time.
I really do think Swerve is probably in line to be a long-term champion sooner than later. So the idea you would kind of put a bow on this feud that was such a catapulting force to his singles run now, I think is a good call, just to kind of tie up loose ends like that. Now, I like it when certain things are left open for stories to revisit with the title, and who's to say that that won't be a story there, but to kind of just give a nice, clean ending to that, I think would be really, really nice. So I'm looking forward to that piece of it and seeing what's ahead, because man, there's almost nobody in wrestling that's more over than Swerve right now. It's crazy. Everywhere he goes, indie appearances, people are doing the dance. It's crazy for him. It's awesome. They've really made a star in him. So hoping that they capitalize sooner than later, because I think there's some really cool possibilities there.
Yeah. And it's
All right,
so
and R.I.P. Trench and Parker Boudreaux. You're right. Like,
Wow.
we should acknowledge the beginnings.
You're right. But it is, again, it's one of these stories, right, where we've seen it a few times in AEW where it's like, you know, these guys leave the WWE system and you're like, look at what they could have had if they just let these guys sort of do some of the things that they know that they could do, or if you sort of give them something interesting to sink their teeth into. Like, he has just taken off. I don't know if they knew what they had in Swerve when they had him, but you have to think that they're kicking themselves now seeing him rise so high. But he never would have been able to do half the things he's done in AEW and the WWE. That Texas Death Match could never, ever happen in the WWE, and that pushed him into the stratosphere.
It is weird because in WWE, Hit Row was so over, and a lot of that was on the back of Swerve because the act was very cool, but he was really the ring, like, work rate quality guy that had the complete package of that entire faction, and it felt like they knew what they had with him, but that happens sometimes. Like, they released Dolph Ziggler, you know, like, just random things like that pop up sometimes. So, but yeah, I think Swerve and Miro are the two that are currently there where I'm just like, how on earth? Like, you could say that about so many. Malachi Black, you could certainly make that case about Tony Storm right now. But I feel like Swerve and Miro, of anybody, was just like, this is the easiest W.
I mean, look, even the first was probably Moxley, right? Like, Moxley came to AEW and fought a completely different style and didn't have to be, you know,
but he left on his own terms. Yeah, but he left on when his contract was up. They wanted him back at least, but
of course. But what I'm saying is, it's just even contract terms, all that kind of stuff. Regardless of that, just seeing what AEW's been able to do if you just sort of let these guys be themselves a little bit, you know, like
Danielson, like, they thought he was a bad promo. Like, he's like the best promo. Look at these tournament promos have ruled. So
anyway, we move on to the ravishing Renee Paquette interviewing Mariah May on stage, and she says that her brutal attack was just supporting the greatest star of our time, timeless Toni Storm, and we've all waited so patiently for her debut. She didn't feel like 2023 had the right energy. So next week, she'll make her debut because 2024 is all about Mariah. And that's when Riho enters, sending Mariah May running to the ring, but Toni Storm's following behind her to even the odds. Mariah gets out of the ring. Riho is able to get Toni Storm set up on the ropes. Luther makes the save from the Tiger Feint kick, but Riho takes them both out with a plancha from the top rope. So Riho with a little bit of an upper hand going into World's End on Saturday. We'll get that title match. But just, you know, again, I feel like just A+ work out of AEW with Toni Storm. Anytime she's there on screen, black and white cuts in, you know, her facial expressions are perfect. She's just
crossbody into Luther's arms had me howling. Like, that spot was so great. But I also think we shouldn't underestimate Mariah May's role in this. Like, that's a very weird role to come into as a wrestler. And she's nailed every beat of it too. Like, that's a very odd place to debut, is like as somebody's super fan. It's such a weird thing, but she's doing great with it, and I'm very excited for her debut.
And that'll be
a part of me wants Riho to win Saturday just to come back here and see what Ant's reaction would be. It's not going to happen, but I kind of want it to happen.
I would honestly have nothing to talk about. I'd be like, I'm going to lay out here. You guys can talk about it as long as you need.
You're like, I'm going to get chicken tenders.
Seriously. I would be apoplectic.
I played 8.
Boom. So we'll see what happens at World's End. And we'll see who Mariah May's first opponent is next week on Dynamite. So we also get an Action Andretti and Top Flight promo talking about how they're just getting started as a trio, and they're going to issue a challenge to anybody. But that's when Orange Cassidy and Roppongi Vice roll up, and Orange Cassidy says that we get it. We'll see you on Friday. And Rocky tells them, I was a little confused by that too, and basically like, see you Friday. So we'll get Action Andretti and Top Flight versus Orange Cassidy and Roppongi Vice on Rampage Friday. Should be fun.
If you're a trio, you got to stop calling yourself Top Flight and another guy. Call them. Somebody had said Action Flight, which I really liked, or like Action Airlines, which I think is cute. But like if you are now a trio, you cannot be a tag team plus another guy. I also really just liked Rocky's line delivery on this when he was like, yeah, I don't know, this guy's crazy, but he did that to me last week, so here you go. So I thought that was cute.
Now, can I say, maybe I just haven't seen a lot of promos with Action Andretti. This is the first time I saw him shotgun a bottle of water like that. Joe, can you shotgun that water the same way he did?
I cannot.
That was.
I'm going to try.
That was impressive. Is that, I've not seen him do that. Is that new?
I hadn't seen that before. He tweeted that he's Action Hydretti now, which I thought was very funny.
Oh, that's so fun. Well, that should be a fun match because all those guys can wrestle. So take a look for that Friday night. We see Christian Cage and the Patriarchy getting to position for their sit down before we go to break. And I thought it was funny that Christian asked Lexi Nair who she was. Where's Renee? So they go to break. We come back from a commercial. Miro's cutting a promo about his wife, CJ Perry, how he'll handle her clients and then he'll kill everyone. And he doesn't want to fight Andrade because of his wife. He wants to fight him because he's a bleep. So we know we're going to get that at World's End, Andrade versus Miro, which should be a lot of fun. And her finger was fucking disgusting. Did you guys see the photos?
I felt terrible for her because it looked like, I think she was in Mexico for CMLL. And while she was there, or while she was at Dynamite, she got a splinter. And by day 2, it had spread completely up her arm and they had to operate. They gave her IV antibiotics and it wasn't enough. Yep. So I can only assume whatever she got splintered with had black mist on it, because we all know that is lethal and also delayed. So
sure, like
a 48-hour time period would make sense. But I'm just glad she's okay because that looked like it was getting really bad really fast. Like if IV antibiotics don't knock out what's in your system and you have to operate, like that's very serious. So I'm just glad she's all right.
I'm not pulling up the photos here because I don't know if like YouTube would flag us and there's just no need for us to look at them. But she did put them up on her Instagram. So if you do want to go look, check out CJ Perry's Instagram. Also, bravo to her for putting up video of her puking in the same roll of photos. So yeah, it was wild. And one LT first lieutenant photo saying she's lucky to not have the finger removed. He's not wrong, because the photos that I saw, I was like, holy shit, it looks like gangrene. Like
it was awful.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
So she's on the mend though. She's back. She's back home apparently. Anyway, moving on. Shivani is in the ring for the Celebration for Boxing Week, where he'll be joined by Don Callis and the Don Callis family. So Callis has something important to say, and as many of you may not know, lots has been going on outside the wrestling business. He wants to say it's been a very difficult 2 weeks for him. And at times like this, you need your family. and he couldn't have gotten through it without his family. And to say thank you, and also to honor Boxing Week in Canada, he got them all gifts. So he unveils some new portraits for him and his crew. The first one is for
Powerhouse
Will Hobbs, a portrait of himself and Konosuke Takeshita, and then a portrait of himself and Kyle Fletcher beating up kangaroos, before he starts to say that the Don Callis family feels complete. But there is a fourth photo there that hasn't been unveiled. He says, finally, the whole family's here, but that's when we get an entrance from
Sammy Guevara.
And Sammy Guevara is back. And Don Callis asks him what what's up? Like he wasn't just expecting him, from the family, and that it's Guevara says it's been a long time, without talking. Don also says, I didn't expect you to show up at work, which I thought was a little funny at that point. But Don asks if he got the gift for the kid, which also seems a little funny if this is a guy in your family. And Sammy says no, and Don Callis says he brought him a gift too, just on the off chance that he shows up. He says he's been carrying around for 2 months, and he then eggs him on to unveil the painting, and it's a portrait of Sammy holding his daughter with the rest of the Don Callis family behind him. And then Guevara gets in Don's face and says, who told you to put my baby on there? And Don tries to spin it all like, the whole family's there to support you, and that's because, let's be honest, you're not mentally capable of being a parent, so you're going to need all the help you can get. And so Sammy says that, Hobbs beat Jericho and Takeshita beat Omega twice, but nobody cares because Don Callis makes it all about him. And Don never asked if he was okay after he got concussed. But Don says that he's disappointed because Guevara dropped the ball and blew the greatest opportunity he had by getting hurt and didn't show up to work for months. So, getting down to brass tacks, Guevara has a choice to make. Either he chooses the other family or he chooses the Don Callis family. And if he makes the wrong choice, he'll be as much of a failure as a wrestler as he will be a father. So, of course, Sammy shoves Don. The family then attacks him from behind, and the beatdown is on. But Chris Jericho makes the save with Floyd. He smashes 3 of the paintings before giving Guevara the bat to smash his picture. There's a moment where Jericho is standing, offering his hand, and then Sammy hugs Jericho. Well, that's when Ricky and Big Bill make the attack. And then the lights go out, and Sting and Darby are in to make the save. And they take shots at Big Bill with the bat, and the 4 guys are left there. Yada, yada, yada. So, a lot to unpack here. One, good to see Sammy back. It is good to see Sammy back. He's cleared to wrestle. I just want to say this too. As a dad, I think it's pretty cool. I thought it was very cute that he hid the back of his vest said Luna's dad. I thought that was very cute.
It should say Jericho's bitch.
Well, you didn't let me get to my next point. I do not understand why Sammy can't just stand on his own 2 fucking feet. Like, I understand Kenny Omega's out, so we need a partner for Jericho. This is sort of a natural pairing. I get it. But we've been down this road now 2 or 3 times. I don't fucking get it. Joe, I'm going to go to you first because Kate has a lot to say. I want to see if you steal any of her thunder first.
I am not in love with this at all. It's repetitive. It's like being in a bad relationship where you break up, you get back together, you break up, get back together. And I get the point of like, oh, he's been out with injury, he had a baby, you want to bring him back like a face, and people won't boo him. But like, it would have been more challenging for him to remain a heel after all this and play the heel role instead of the plucky Sammy babyface, which him on the mic tonight was kind of average for me. It's very Sammy of, a couple one-liners at Don, and that was it. So yeah, I don't need to see it, and I feel like it's going to limit him going forward until he finally breaks apart from Jericho for good, and they get them away from each other instead of continuing to shoehorn them together. And yeah, I don't know why Sting and Darby got involved. I don't remember. Did they have a connection to this at all before this? It's just a way of like, let's insert Sting and get as much Sting as we can on a pay-per-view.
Pretty sure that's it.
So yeah, it feels like a 0-hour match to me.
And then we did find out, Joe, to your point, because I didn't say it, we did find out later that they made this match official for World's End. It's going to be Sting, Darby, Jericho, and Sammy versus Big Bill and Ricky, and Hobbs and Takeshita, right? So, whatever. It's yeah. To your point, before we go to Kate, Joe, to your point, like, yes, it's going to be hard for him to be a heel now, a dad back from a concussion. Like, it's hard to stay heel. What better way, though, to make him like a super face than to just straight out reject Don Callis and do it on his own? Like, I feel like that's the strong way of doing it, is saying, screw you. I choose my family, and then just have to face him on your own instead of having to go back with goddamn Jericho. Kate, floor's yours.
In real life, I'm very happy for Sammy and Tay. Okay. In wrestling world, I don't give a fuck about your stupid kid. Okay. I don't care about your newborn. I don't care. This is so boring and lame. Feels like Paul White has produced these segments with how much Sammy Guevara has turned back and forth. It is truncated more by the fact that we never really got a resolution about why Jericho and Sammy split in the first place. That makes this even worse because you can't even go and undo that. You can't even have like some revelation or some new understanding because the actual split piece of this was so weak to start. Sammy didn't go off with the rest of the Jericho Appreciation Society. So he stuck with Jericho to then split on Jericho to now go back to Jericho. God, he just looks like such a little bitch. He doesn't look like a strong face in this at all. It's so truncated and messed up. I really don't think, like, this is an adult crowd. The fact that he had a kid is not a reason to turn somebody face anymore. It's just not. Like, you could have kept him heel. We all get it. We all wink and nod along now. There's a lot of heels that we think are cool as people that we still boo for. Like, I am so over that trope of like, well, they had a kid, so you got to bring them back face. No, you don't. And for the love of God, give him some new creative. If you want him to be a face, fine. He doesn't have to be a part of this shit. He just doesn't. Like, it's, oh God, it was awful. And I got to say, like, of the 4 pillars, there's like one really strong one, and Darby is pretty perpetually over, but like Jungle Boy got lost real fast with that heel turn. We don't know where he is. I think there's a really fun way for him to come back to Christian if you want to keep him heel. And I think he will come back heel, and that's good. But Sammy has just been, he's been fledging for literally years. We were exhausted about this when the Jericho Appreciation Society reformed. We said, why is he just going back to Jericho? That is so lazy. And now this is like the 3rd or 4th time we've been using the same crutch. It's boring. It's exhausted. It was barely good the first time they retreaded it. And now we're at the 3rd and 4th time. And we don't even have comprehensive layers as to why. Like, if somebody can tell me with full clarity why Jericho and Sammy fully split, It was medium sort of because of the Don Callis family. There was never any clarity around that. This is so bad, and it is so hindering to Sammy. The first time I was like fully into Sammy was the Don Callis stuff. Like we saw it at Grand Slam and he was getting his ass booed. I was like, good, this is good. Like people are actually reacting to him because he's great in the ring. But for the love of God, let the man move on to something and somebody else. And the fact that Ricky Starks is bogged down in all of this makes me nauseous. Like, I like this little tag run from him and Big Bill. Big Bill being like, my uncle has gingivitis and he's just fine. Kenny and his diverticulitis cracked me up on Rampage or on Collision. That was great. Like, how many times is Ricky Starks going to get held back by Chris Jericho instead of propelled forward by literally anything else? Woof. Woof to all of this. Nope, not into it. And my God, if Jericho and Sammy win the tag titles, I'm just going to be so disappointed because this used to be the best tag division in the world and it just will officially not be anymore. Because that is like the corniest trope ever of like, we got back together, we won the tag titles for them to inevitably split again. No.
So I would have liked to see this go I don't know. Here's how I think you could have done this without having to put him back with Jericho. Like, why not just have Don Callis be like, you fucked up. You got hurt and Kyle Fletcher came in and filled your shoes and now he's a champion. And like now Darby's got to fight for his spot. Like, that's how you can do it. Like have Sammy almost be the odd guy out and be like, no, I'll prove myself. And then either he'll get frustrated and be like, fuck you, and turn back face and go on his own, or he'll put Fletcher in his place and, alpha him out or something. Like they could have done something like that to make this more interesting. Here's the other thing I don't understand. And somebody said it in the chat. I think it was Gordon Post. Gordon Post said, I thought they would have had Le Sex Gods versus Bill and Ricky Starks for the titles. Yeah. Like, why do we have to? And this is back to your point, Joe. Like, why is this even an 8-man thing? There's no reason besides just like, oh, we're going to put Sting on this because we have Sting for a limited amount of time. It just doesn't need to be. Like, just let it be Jericho and Sammy. If you're really going to do this for the titles, they don't win and you move on to something else. And either Sammy says, I thought this could work, but clearly we're in two different paths now. Like, I've got to sort of do this on my own. Or Jericho turns on him because, he thought he was going to help him. He didn't, whatever. Like, you didn't need to do an 8-man here. You don't need it. I
think they don't want Jericho or Sammy to take the pin. And I think they want to keep I'm hoping, for the love of God, they want to keep the titles on Bill and Ricky. Because if they were gonna switch hands, you can pin Big Bill. Like, that's not the end of the world. That actually makes the other team look really, really strong. But I think they don't want to pin Jericho or returning Sammy. But I gotta say, like, this past year of Jericho stuff has been mostly insufferable. Like, it has been bad. It's been downright bad, the stuff that he's been involved in. And it's like all of the equity you built up into one of the biggest stars of the world just being downright bad is something that they need to correct. Because I'm not saying Jericho doesn't have value, but it's been a rough year of like overstayed the welcome with the Jericho Appreciation Society, and basically everything from then to now has just been bad. Get it together.
Yeah. And to be clear, this match, this 8-man match, there is nothing on the line. Those tag team titles are not being defended unless they change this at some reason on Friday night. It's just an 8-man tag match. There's no title on the line in that match. So they went from having Jericho and Kenny invoking their contract to then having Kenny have to drop out because of legit medical reasons, and Jericho saying, I'm going to find somebody for a partner, to essentially having a partner, to then having to insert Sting and Darby. I don't understand that. And a correction on my part, my apologies. I believe it is Hobbs and Fletcher from the family, not Takeshita.
Oh my God, what the fuck are we not doing with Takeshita?
Well, I mean, I'll say this. I don't mind seeing Kyle Fletcher because some of the guys on the other side of the ring, I think, could have some good shit happening with Kyle Fletcher. You know, seeing Fletcher against Sammy, Fletcher against Darby, like that's good shit.
He just won the ROH TV title. Let him work ROH. Like,
no, I don't disagree. I'm just thinking for, you know, for parity of the teams, right? So it's like you have Sammy and Darby, and I guess that's why you have Kyle Fletcher and then Ricky, right? To sort of size up. And then you have Jericho and Sting, I guess, sizing up against Big Bill and Hobbs. Like those are two giant men. So I guess maybe that's why you don't put Takeshita in, because he's another sort of big guy. But yeah, I don't know. I don't like any of this. I don't like it. No, sir. I don't like it.
They were all so much better before they joined this faction. I mean, Hobbs was doing well on his own with the Book of Hobbs and that build. Takeshita was, you know, the heel turn was great. That's fine, but he was fine as a single person instead of this collective family thing. It's just the sum of all these parts don't make a good whole. It's just they're great individually.
I think they also just cooled it down too much, right? Like the Callis family was so hot. And then like it's just sort of cooled down a lot. Like I don't, you know, after Kenny it was almost like what's next? And it's like there's nothing there. You know, like so I mean, I don't know. The winner in all this though, Mel.
Yeah, Mel Coleman. Love that for her. She's
Winner.
great. Man, she does some really, really good work.
Good stuff.
I just don't get it.
I know.
Makes me sad. This was the best tag division in the world by like a mile. And then what are we doing?
It's a great question. Great question.
Not a fan.
Well, I will say this. We do then get the gorgeous Renee Paquette backstage with Roddy, who unveils his murder board that proves that MJF is the devil. So the Kingdom are holding up his board. There's a lot of pictures and string. He's trying to find Pepe Sylvia, but it does all point to MJF being the devil. So that is the story the Kingdom and Roddy are going to hold. And we will see what happens later, because we do know that the Ring of Honor tag team titles are on the line tonight against two of the Devil's masked men.
Shout out to Renee. I love the just pre-interview yell.
Yeah, always fantastic. Roddy's,
there is no Carol in HR. That's what it was. Behind him.
Yeah. Everybody's looking for their mail. So we now go on to our Blue League finals in the Continental Classic, the one-on-one match against Bryan Danielson, Eddie Kingston. Eddie has never beaten Bryan Danielson in a singles match, so Eddie is looking for a little bit of redemption. Also, not leading Danielson in the points, right? So it's like that's another sort of little mental thing here that Eddie's got to overcome, is the fact that Danielson's like ahead in the points, you know, and he's lost to him once in this tournament. So we get through this match, a lot of chops, a lot of shit happening, but as we boil down to the end, Eddie Kingston is able to win by pinfall, winning the Blue League of the Continental Classic to advance to the finals against Jon Moxley at World's End. And post-match, Mox comes to ringside to check on Danielson and confront Eddie Kingston ahead of the meeting at the pay-per-view. So he gets on the mic and says all he's ever asked of Eddie, every time he puts his neck on the line because he believes in him, is that he gives 100%. And for somebody who hates this world, who hates the world that's against him, lots of people love him. AEW fans all across the country, all across the world love Eddie, and they don't care whether he wins or loses, but they deserve his very best of everything in his heart and his soul. But the problem is that Moxley knows him better than he knows himself. And since they both know he can't win, he's already lost, and he's already given up, and he's already made all of his excuses. A couple of years ago, Mox gave him the shot of a lifetime and let him leave on his shield a warrior's death, but this time he's not getting one single favor. He'll have to earn every inch of it. And Eddie takes the microphone and says Mox talked enough, and he can't come out here and treat him like his young bitch Yuta, his young boy bitch Yuta. The thing is that he broke in before him, and he's actually Moxley's senpai. And on Saturday, the King of the Bums is going to push him. One time when he tried to quit, John said he needed to be around to shape the younger guys. And he'll give him everything he's got, and he'll show him his fighting spirit. And he expects to see Mox leaves, because he's going to bust up John, and he's going to enjoy it. And that's the end of that conversation. I'm going to give the honors to Kate here. I'm not even going to say anything. I'll give all the honors to Kate on the match and the post-match promo.
This is a match where I will talk about spots because there were some incredible ones. Danielson with the exploder was awesome, like early on in this. There were a couple of counters in this that were fantastic. The label lock into the DDT was fantastic. And later, what did my notes say? What did we get here? There was, Danielson, his chest is like beat red, because if you're in a chopping contest with Eddie Kingston, it's very possible you're on the losing end of that. So this beat red chest, and when Kingston went to go for that chop and he countered it into a bridging suplex, this is the second week in a row, because on Collision we saw Danielson with some incredible counters. That Ricola bomb that he countered with a triangle choke that went into the neutralizer was great. This was super, super, super clever. I loved it. The Psycho knees always look great. Those anvil elbows always look great. Him spitting at Eddie was fantastic. I loved that Eddie won with a back fist and a Kawada bomb instead of the Northern Lights bomb. Like, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful storytelling. And this has just been exactly what you wanted for Eddie up until this point. Like, back against the wall. He's always the guy that loses. He has all these insecurities, all these sabotaging tendencies. And now he's beating Bryan Danielson in the finals after putting two of his own titles on the line to get to a third one. Like, his tournament trajectory is such a victory. And they have gone to the well of Eddie losing so many times that if he wins here, like, this is going to be because the ROH title is great. And that was an amazing moment in Grand Slam. And the New Japan Strong title and what that means to him is great. But for him to do it properly in front of the AEW crowd and to beat Claudio again, Danielson for the first time ever after losing to him, and then to beat Moxley is like just the perfect babyface trajectory. And Eddie Kingston is not a guy that feels like an underdog babyface, but when you book stuff through a tournament like this, you can create underdogs without making them look like they need to be underdog, like the cartoon. Like, you can make an underdog babyface in a way that you kind of can't in other ways. But I've just loved this arc. I think it's a really wise idea after what's been kind of a weird year in AEW to send your crowd home on the happiest note. If you do decide to have Eddie win here for the year, I think that's just like a really nice thing to do. And the post-match was great. They basically said, like, hey, you're going to get a New Japan Strong style match on this. They used the phrase fighting spirit, like all of these things. And I loved that we always had floating pieces of this story, and the tournament was the thing that pulled them together. Like, Mox was his enemy and then was his brother. And the guy, how many times have we heard him say, like, I hate everybody but Mox? And then his estranged brother now, because he hangs out with that guy. He hangs out with Claudio, who he's hated for decades. And to be able to come back around and say, I beat Claudio, I beat Danielson to get here is just an excellent use of the tournament. Because we're coming down to the final stretch of this, I'll also just say that, like, I think this tournament has been such a refreshing reset button. And I'm extremely impressed by how many character arcs we've gotten out of this, including losses for Daniel Garcia being meaningful ones. Like, he almost lost out, but all of those losses created this really cool trajectory for him. Mark Briscoe showing out, but losing out, but it didn't really matter because he like justified it by saying this is his rookie year as a singles competitor because he always had his brother. Like, even the people that have been losing have been winning. And you can go back to things like LFI versus the Blackpool Combat Club if you wanted to make the Roosh Moxley fight mean something or whatever. So tournaments, when maximized to their full potential, are just the best fucking thing in the world, in my opinion. So this was a really great use of that. Danielson losing, a Danielson loss is just like the most meaningful thing ever. So I just loved it. And I loved the match that we got in this. I thought it was so well done. Kudos to them for what was an awesome tournament already. And I can't wait for the finals.
Joe, what about your thoughts on this?
Again, Kate took a lot of that, and a lot of it was accurate, and I agree with most of it. It's not all of it, but
would you like to name one spot?
Sure. I always enjoy seeing Eddie dive do the Tope Suicida. I always love seeing a big guy dive through the ropes.
I would allow it because I took up so much oxygen in this. So you earned
another
it.
little thing that I like that Eddie does is his little kick out when he sells the move so well that he can he does the bare minimum kick out where it's like barely throw an arm up, your shoulder up, but it just goes to show like his resiliency, which goes back to this whole arc of redemption and resiliency. The man who gave up everything for a chance to win everything, whether it's winning the belt, winning the Triple Crown, winning respect, winning adulation, all these things. I think that there's something poetic in sacrificing, putting all that stuff on the line to hopefully win the greatest prize of all. And I think him winning it would be the right move because Moxley doesn't need the Triple Crown belt. I mean, he's been a multi-time world champion. It doesn't do much for him. So hopefully we just see Eddie win and topple this mountain on Saturday.
Yeah, it would be a story full circle because of, Eddie and Moxley's past. That's for sure. Don't mind the way that this ended up. The post-match promo was good, although I think there were some inconsistencies because if memory serves me, the sensei was Ira and the senpai was Dwight, not Eddie. But regardless,
I think you're right.
Yeah,
oversight from creative there for sure.
Eddie taking some liberty. But I thought everything was good with this. The match was good. They told a lot of story in the match. The post-match promo again was good. This is, I think, where things went a little long. Like, I think this contributed. Certainly, the opening match went a little long. This promo, they could have done it backstage video style, later, but I didn't mind it happening here. I just think it contributed to the show going long. But it was all very good. An interesting story. Hopefully, will come full circle. I would agree with some of what I see going on in the chat, as well as I think, Joe, you said it. There's pretty much no reason for Moxley to win this belt. So this should go to Eddie. I think that's how we're all sort of leaning. But we will see. I'm excited to see how they finish up this tournament, and hopefully they will repeat a tournament like this next winter, because it's a nice thing to get you through sort of to the end of the year, give you something to be invested in. So yeah, we'll see how this rounds out. But we do see Christian Cage with Shayna Wayne and Nick Wayne getting ready to be interviewed with Adam Copeland, but he's mad because Adam Copeland is not there yet. We are informed by somebody off camera that he's there, and they go to break saying he's coming in. And when we get back from commercial, Copeland does basically just start to attack Christian Cage and Nick Wayne. Security sort of comes in to make the save. Copeland shrugs them off, continuing to put the beat down in the hallway. The rest of the roster, including a fully clothed Tony Nese, comes to make the save. Mrs. Money was not happy about the clothes, but happy to see Nese on a Wednesday night. And there is a pull apart, so Christian and Copeland have this issue that they will take care of at World's End. So no sit-down interview, but a lot of action leading into their match at World's End. I don't know if you guys have anything you'd like to talk about this in particular, but, there is a blood feud here. These guys have it out for each other.
Earlier, Christian calling her mother Wayne almost made me fall off my chair. But I sincerely think it would have been funnier if they didn't. I would sincerely think it would have been funnier and better if security didn't protect Nick Wayne and it was just Mother Wayne standing there, and Adam Copeland had to work his way around not hitting a woman because he's a face, but still wanted to beat the shit out of Nick Wayne. They should have just put Shayna Wayne in the line of fire there. But other than that, this is fine. This continues things to where they need to go, right?
Yeah, of course. So we'll see how that shakes out on Saturday, but we move on to our women's match of the night, Chris Statlander versus Sky Blue. Stoke is on commentary because he's sort of eyeing Chris Statlander, trying to work with her. As we get to the end of this match, Sky Blue wins by pinfall with an avalanche code blue because Julia Hart is able to get involved while the referee is turned with Sky Blue. Post-match, Blue attacks Statlander. Hart watches and throws a Northern Lariat of her own. Sky hits the Dragon Sleeper. Willow comes out to make the save. And they retreat up the ramp, but Abaddon is on the stage, just sort of reminding us she's waiting there for her match against Julia on Saturday at World's End. I thought this match was perfectly fine. I think it's a protected loss for Chris Statlander having Julia get involved, right? But I'm still in this place where it's like, I see Sky Blue and I'm like, I appreciate the fact that she's all the way heel, but I'm still like, I don't buy you're a heel. I feel like she's too flat. I don't know how to explain it. She's a face and she doesn't I don't know how to explain it. Her personality just seems so flat, whether she's a face or a heel. I'm like, show something. Give me something to believe that you're.
She shows something. It's just not what you're asking for. It's
Listen.
More in the...
Oh, I'm asking for it, but that was I thought funny. They said on commentary something like, Sky Blue's look has changed. I said to Mrs. Money, one part of her look hasn't changed. It's but anyway, yeah, I had no problem with the match. Stoke had some funny things on commentary. He kept getting interrupted. Taz was kissing his ass. I thought that was all very, very fun. But
shout out to Cousin Leon from AutoZone.
5 years.
5 years he's been collecting that check. Yeah,
that's right. I don't know if that's a bad thing or if that's props to you, brother, for getting one over on the man. But yeah, I don't know. Joe, we know Kate doesn't support women's wrestling. So what did you think about this match?
I'm with you. It was fine. It felt like a Rampage special on Dynamite. I don't. Sky Blue as a heel, I'm glad, like you said, I'm glad that she turned heel. Her character work is still in development. I don't know if it's just her still being young, or maybe she just hasn't played heel a lot in other promotions that she worked on in these. But her mannerisms and character work seem to me of like your basic, like, here are the things you do as a heel. You make little like snide looks at the crowd. You make hand gestures. You do little things that don't do much character work, but they just try to get you some heat. So hopefully that comes with time. It seems like Julia picked it up pretty quick for her character. And I think they're kind of hoping that maybe Sky Blue will kind of replicate what Julia had, but sometimes you can't capture magic in a bottle twice. So it might be more of a slower burn for that one. But yeah, I think the win's good. Protects his Statlander, but also, having Sky Blue get a win over a former, champion, gives her some credibility, makes her more of a threat with Julia. So it did what it had to do.
For sure. Kate, you were, I think, grabbing chicken fingers during this match. But did you get to see enough of the GIFs on social?
I did. I saw a GIF of the end. And I'm really glad that Sky Blue could live to tell the story, because holy crap. I like her using the Dragon Sleeper. That's a fun development over the past couple weeks. And I hear what you guys are saying. I think part of the problem is they like hinted at it and then they didn't do anything with it. And then so to have her turn fully heel, it just feels like such a delayed gratification as opposed to like a proper heel turn. And she almost looks less spooky now than when she was in that tweener thing, because she doesn't have like the makeup this time around. I will say I think it's a really good use of a loss in the women's division. Kris Statlander has not lost a singles match, maybe not at all, since June of 2022. Obviously she had injury, but to have it be something that is important in a match on Dynamite, I think is good. And for it to advance a storyline there, right? I know there's stuff going on with Chris and Willow, but like Julia got the best of her for that title. Now Julia is pulling some strings with some henchwomen here. I think that's cool. I hope what happens with the Abaddon title loss is that Abaddon goes to that side and she can be kind of more of a bruiser, and you have this like coven with Sky Blue, Julia Hart, and Abaddon. Like that's a badass little trio. One of my co-hosts at Fight Club, Alex, had said like if Abaddon was almost like in an attack dog mode where she doesn't really say anything, but she's just like this vicious woman who takes people out in Julia Hart's title picture or whatever, that could be a really, really fun use of Abaddon. And it's nice to see Abaddon getting on TV consistently. They've only come out really around Halloween. So that would be a really, really cool way to build that up. And for Julia to have like a subdivision of the House of Black, I think is just a really cool direction to go. So I would love to see that. I'd assume they would all then have a feud with Thunder Rosa, but overall I'm just like excited about the fact that we're getting tons of stories in the women's division. Like Willow and Stat have some sort of alliance. Like this is really good. So match was pretty decent. I think Sky Blue has some work to do, but she's improved a ton in the ring. So that makes me happy, and hopefully her character development comes along with it. But a good use of a Kris Statlander loss in the biggest win of Sky Blue's career, I think, and she looked pretty good.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with Sky Blue in the ring. It's just really the character. Like, just make me believe you're a heel. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to believe. Like, I just want somebody to say to her, like, just amp this up to like 15, and like, you'll be there. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to see that. And yeah, I'm very glad we're seeing more of Abaddon. They have such a cool look.
Yes.
Like it's so different than anything you see in the women's division that, I just think we need to see more of them. So, All right, moving on from this, we do get the stunning Renee Paquette again backstage with Ruby Soho and Saraya, but Ruby Soho really doesn't get to say much here because Saraya cuts her off to give her a birthday present, which happens to be Harley from QTV, now that QTV is not really a thing anymore. Harley is there, and Saraya says she's willing to do anything and is also great with her hands. Make that what you will of that. So Ruby does get a phone call. We assume it's Angelo Parker. Saraya says, tell Angelo, hi, I love that guy. Clearly, Saraya's got a problem with Angelo. But she also says that Harley, I don't know what the fuck she says, but Harley pulls a knife out and she says, I'll explain this later. And that's kind of that. So I don't know if there's much to say here. I don't know how we're going to pull Harley into this. But I'm interested to see what's going to happen here with this Ruby Soho, Angelo Parker story. I mean, real life thing, working its way into television. So don't necessarily have a problem with that, but I would like to see, where that story goes. So, moving on, we have our main event of the night. It's the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship main event. And the Devil's Masked Men make their way through the crowd first. Devil 1 and 2, I guess that's how we're calling them. And MJF makes his entrance, but Samoa Joe is nowhere to be found when he's called upon. And we see him backstage screaming, clutching his knee. Somebody rolls up to sort of check on him. But Max insists he's going to fight and gets in the ring. So the match is underway. And he gets a quick jump, but at some point, a third masked man from under the ring hits MJF with a steel pipe. They get back inside the ring. Devil 1 gets in, hits Max with a heat seeker, and puts his feet on the ropes for the pin, and the masked men win via pinfall with the heat seeker. So they are the new Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions. Now, we'll talk about that. But post-match, as the Devils now come out to beat down MJF, Joe hobbles his way down with a steel chair to make the save. The goons run off, and we see the Devil appear on the screen. And all of a sudden, they're looking, and the words flash up, "Pleasure doing business with you." And that's when we cut back to the ring, and Joe's face changes, and he wallops MJF with the chair across the back. And he is in league with the Devil. They've worked out a deal here. So he lays Max out with the Muscle Buster, pins him with 1 foot symbolically, holds up the world title. And that's how we end the show going into the pay-per-view on Saturday. So we talked about it, here briefly before. MJF does come out with a shoulder brace on. He's all taped up. Shoulder's clearly not 100%. Joe is in league with the Devil. What the hell? Ring of Honor has new tag team champions. We don't know who they are. I'll at least say this. The belts are now off of MJF and Adam Cole, baby. So we needed those belts off. I think this is sort of leading to, in my personal opinion, I think this tells me MJF's shoulder's fucked and he needs to come off TV. And I think he needs surgery because I think this belt is changing hands on Saturday. And you need to get the belts off him because, first of all, Adam Cole can't wrestle. MJF, I think, is going to have to take time off, and you're going to have to get everything off him. And I don't think you want him to have to relinquish anything. So, it is what it is, but this accomplishes one thing by getting the belts off MJF, regardless of how everything else played out. I mean, I'd love your thoughts on this, lady and gent. Kate, I'll go to you first. What did you make of this whole go home segment?
So I liked the intention better than I liked the execution. I think it felt, even with the overrun, I think it felt really rushed. But Joe fake taking himself out, I thought was clever, and that it seems like he's in cahoots with the devil. To me, this tells me that involved in this, whether it's the devil or not, it's got to be the kingdom. It just would make too much sense to have this long payoff where the kingdom didn't win the belts and it went to Aussie Open, and then to MJF and Adam Cole. It would just make way too much sense with all of this going on that it wouldn't be them. And I think that's a perfectly suitable reveal. I think there's a very strong possibility that Adam Cole is pulling the strings of this, though. And I think what you might see is MJF lose the tag titles this week, MJF lose the title at World's End, and MJF lose the only friend he's ever really had. I think you might see MJF lose everything he's had and worked for in one shot. And I think that's just like a really impressive character arc of, wow, like I'm finally vulnerable and trust someone and I lose everything because of it, is a really good excuse to get him back to being a proper heel, whether that's after surgery or him just being off TV. You also have him saying, I don't believe it for a second, but you have him saying, like, I haven't re-signed. My contract is still up at the end of the year. So I think even if he needs surgery or not, I think this was probably always the plan, was to have him go away for a little bit to create some intrigue. But if he comes back re-signed as a heel because he doesn't trust someone or has whatever angle with Adam Cole, like that could be really good. And also Adam Cole doesn't have to be medically cleared to do that. Like he can just be pulling the strings of this and it's everybody else doing it. My dream is that Kyle O'Reilly's involved in it somehow. I think he still has a lot of progress to make, it seems like, just from like Instagram posts and stuff. But I would love for Red Dragon, or Redragon as we call them here, to be back involved in this. But I think that's an incredible, people are going to say it's anticlimactic because it was there all along, but I think that's a really incredible arc to have him lose everything because he trusted someone is like a really good call. And Samoa Joe's just such a dastardly asshole with his little buster that he laid in on MJF there. That was like the perfect move to do it. So I actually thought the segment was like seemed poorly received online. I think maybe this angle has overstayed its welcome a little bit, but I liked what it accomplished. I just think the execution of it was clunky because TV time is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think too the fact that now maybe you're going to have to pivot where you initially wanted this to go, right? Like if Max does have to go off TV because of surgery, you know, even if there was something sort of planned here, maybe now you have to alter the way you were going to do things because it might be longer than you anticipated, right? I think it's nice that you have that sort of kayfabe story of I'm not re-signed, like that plays in naturally to being off TV. But it's just like now I think we were going to I think we were going to reveal the devil at World's End. Now I think there's no question we have to pay that off now, because you can't wait until Max gets back to pay it off. You have to pay it off before he goes if he's going to go off TV.
Sure.
So, you know, a little clunky, but I think the time constraint too here, you know, played part in sort of how this all went down. But Joe, what did you think? I don't want to step on your thoughts.
No, I agree that it concludes Saturday at World's End. You felt like you were kind of buying time for a while, just because everything kind of aligned with World's End, you know, being right before the end of the year, right before the end of Max's contract. So I felt like you were kind of like stalling and trying to play out as long as possible until this date. I like the idea of the Kingdom, or even some form of Roddy and whomever being the people who won the belts tonight, because you're going to need someone who has ROH ties to win the belts, to not feel like it's a disappointment and not to further, tarnish the ROH tag team titles. So they need to be probably need to be restored a little rehab on the belts. And yeah, I think what we said about it being a little predictable now, I think, having it be the Kingdom and Roddy and Adam be involved, I think it all kind of, when you look back at the story, it kind of made sense with Ryan the Kingdom Boy trying to deflect and point fingers at someone else. Ryan's always said that he's Joe's best friend by proxy, right? So he had ties there. Adam has always been the one to push Joe onto MJF, trying to plant him as someone he can trust for the time being. So I think all that, looking back, it makes sense for the reveal to be pretty predictable, but I do like the idea of MJF, going away now, whether it's injury, storyline, whatever. Coming back, maybe kind of like a free agent slash, he could do free agent. He could be kind of the outsider role if you want to. If you want to kind of keep him a face, he could be kind of the outsider vigilante who comes back and try to, get retribution on the devil and all these people who wronged him. Yeah, otherwise, I'm just glad it'll be over by Saturday.
Let me get your thoughts on this. So I do like the thought now in retrospect, if it's Adam Cole being this master manipulator we never thought he could be, right? Because he was such a face. It is a complete heel turn. And, to the max degree, no pun intended, because he's manipulated the world champion out of his title and put himself in line, with a strong sort of faction and, an eventual path to a title that he said he would get, right? So it sort of makes sense. Now, let me ask you if you would think this may be good. Max goes off TV, right? He came back initially for this run as the devil, right? So he's the devil, he's our devil, blah, blah, blah. He goes away and he comes back as our savior now, right? So it's the complete other way, but he came back as the devil and was a face. If he comes back as the people's savior to get that title, but he's a complete fucking heel, I feel like that could be a win move. Like, I'm here to save this for you. But he's doing all this heel shit and he's just an awful person again. That would be so fucking funny to me, is if he just played the opposite.
Yeah. It sounds a lot like Seth Rollins' Messiah character for a while.
It sounds a little close to Mustafa Ali's just struck with this world leader thing. But that's also what heels and faces are, right? So I'm sure you could creatively differentiate it, but that was kind of the alarm bells going off in my head, was like, oh, I think Mustafa's doing this already, but his is positioned interesting enough where it feels like whether he's heel or face is how you see him. So I think that'll be interesting, but I don't hate that idea at all. Like, to come back as the angel on your shoulder who's actually the heel after being the devil on your shoulder who's actually the face is a fun dichotomy.
Right. It's like the complete 180 opposite. So, well, we are now heading into Saturday's pay-per-view. Friday we'll have Rampage with a few matches. I don't have the exact match card, but I do know that right now the card for Saturday is MJF versus Samoa Joe for the AEW World Championship. Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston in the finals for the Continental Classic for the AEW Triple Crown. Timeless Tony Storm versus Riho for the AEW Women's World Championship. Christian Cage versus Adam Copeland in a no disqualification match for the TNT Championship. Julia Hart versus Abaddon for the TBS title. Swerve Strickland versus Keith Lee. Miro versus Andrade El Idolo. Sting, Darby Allin, Chris Jericho, and Sammy Guevara, for some reason, versus Ricky Starks, Big Bill, Powerhouse Hobbs. Oh, I'm sorry.
Powerhouse
Hobbs and Kyle Fletcher. And Hook. 2 0-hour pre-show matches have been announced. One is Hook versus Wheeler Yuta in an FTW rules match for the FTW Championship. And then a 20-minute battle royal for an anytime, anywhere TNT title shot. So that is the card right now for Saturday's pay-per-view. Should be an interesting show. I think especially interesting because we've normally had this long gap, right, between All Out, or I'm sorry, Full Gear and Revolution. So now there's this stopgap, so we can sort of close up stories officially and sort of set us on path for the next pay-per-view. So we'll see what comes out of this show, but there are some interesting matches on the card. For now, let's move on to some news and notes. So first up is as my window refreshes, we've been talking a lot about free agents: Mustafa Ali, Matt Riddle, Dolph Ziggler. They're all now free to sign wherever they would like. But we do know one thing: Matt Riddle is already signed up. He has joined MLW. So for any people out there who were saying, oh, maybe it's Matt Riddle as the devil, it is not Matt Riddle. It is not Sami Callihan. We know that, as they are both now with MLW. Mustafa Ali is still hanging out there. He actually put out a World Tour campaign video. He was teasing fights with some names out there, but he is available for booking. I believe some of the names that he threw out there were Ospreay, Okada, Swerve, just to name a few. So could be interesting to see where he winds up. Wouldn't mind seeing him show up in AEW. There's some good competition there for him, but you know, if you do go to
2.1 million views on that video in 2 days, that guy's a fucking star. I'm so excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, for sure. And interesting enough, obviously, some of the other guys he mentioned, Ospreay headed to AEW, Swerve in AEW, Okada, New Japan, but those doors are open with AEW, so maybe
CSJ was in there.
It's true.
Happy gal.
True. So we'll see what happens. No word yet on Ziggles, but I think wherever he shows up, people will be excited. Whether it's an indie or one of the other, MLWs, TNAs, AEW, wherever. But the other thing we know is that Mike Santana is available for booking. He put out a tweet last week saying, spent the last 4 months back in wrestling, warming myself up against some of the best in the game. Now it's time to officially start this journey and make this the best year of my career. The work begins, available worldwide. And he gave his email out for bookings. And some people were a little confused, thinking maybe he's not in AEW, he's done. But he did say, I'm still in AEW. I just don't do well sitting around waiting for opportunities. I go get mine. So Santana is available for booking. So it'll be interesting to see where he winds up, maybe where he gets some extra time. It is a shame that he's sort of sat doing nothing because he is quite a wrestler. So
kind of odd that they had such a successful feud with him and Ortiz and then just didn't follow it up with anything.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So some interesting names out and about there for booking on the indies, as well as guys maybe to sign up to AEW.
Hell yeah.
Dean Malenko also recently shared that he had brain surgery to treat some of his Parkinson's symptoms. He had discussed living with Parkinson's disease in the past, including a 2021 episode of Jericho. He talked about the shakes and his experiences as a result of Parkinson's, saying, my 15-year-old, if I'm shaking, she'll come over and put her hand on me and then start shaking and just have fun with it. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm not going to get rid of it. It's always going to be there. Hopefully with modern medicine going forward, they can slow this down at one point. If not, I'll deal with it whenever. But it did come up on the new episode of the Grilling JR podcast, where Jim Ross did report that he had surgery. He said, I saw Dean Malenko. Malenko's had some health issues. I saw him there, and he had brain surgery, and it stops his shakes from Parkinson's. And he's had the surgery. He's a sweetheart of a guy. So he talked also in that episode of how good Malenko's been to AEW, saying he's really, really good at coaching talent. He was also a producer for the WWE for a long time before he left in 2019 and joining AEW. So good to hear Malenko has had some positive results from brain surgery. Doesn't always work for Parkinson's. So hopefully it helps, because it is a brutal disease. Brutal. Something else that came out this week. We've sort of been wondering when this was going to come out. Shibata is officially signed to AEW. So Tony Khan said it's official. Shibata is all elite. Welcome to AEW for one of the greatest fighters and champions ever in wrestling, legend Katsuyori Shibata. Thank you, NJPW Global, for making it all possible. See you all moments from now for Collision. That came out right before Collision. So Shibata is officially all elite. Shibata did say, "Dear Tony Khan," in a letter. "Dear Tony Khan, today I have signed the contract with AEW under a permission from New Japan Pro Wrestling. In the past year, I worked at AEW/ROH, and I learned how wonderful the AEW is. This is the best environment where wrestlers can focus only on fighting in the ring. And the love for professional wrestling is overflowing from Tony and all the people who work for him. I want to make AEW's ring the last endpoint of the wrestler's career. I dedicate my wrestler life to Tony Khan and AEW. Thank you, Katsuyori Shibata." So he is fully all elite. He's been there for quite a while, and he's had some really good matches. So looks like this is where he wants to end things. So so glad to see he's there officially.
Yeah, cool that he gets to go out on his own term.
Yeah, for sure. A couple things left. Jericho did sort of, talk a little bit about Brawl Out, basically saying that he didn't sign an NDA. Someone out there on Twitter or X said CM Punk and Ace Steel's lawyer reveals only person involved in Brawl Out without an NDA, which at that point I think was Ace Steel's wife. But Jericho said, "I didn't sign one." So Steve New, who was the lawyer there, responded saying, it's in your employee handbook unless you have a special one. We can figure it out. And Jericho said, "Hey, Steven, I don't adhere to an employee handbook and have never had one in 4 years of working for AEW. I've also never signed an NDA in my life, ever. Stop trying to be a bully and making egotistical fantasy brags for your clients and start doing some research." So apparently Jericho hasn't signed an NDA. Jericho also said, "Because I saw everything that night, including how Lucy and her husband and best buddy acted and what really went down. And since I was in the room and watching her and everybody else in the whole time, I know exactly what really happened. And considering you weren't there and I was, maybe you should shut your mark ass up, because what really went down was disgusting." So who knows? Maybe we'll get a couple stories on this at some point, but sounds like there are a couple people without NDAs.
There's got to be a better way to spend your Christmas.
I mean, listen, carnies are going to carny, right? We've been there. We've said that. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. We also found out this past week that Dana Massey, Matt Jackson's wife, is leaving her executive position at AEW. She was working in a merchandising role. I don't have the exact title in front of me. My apologies. But it was confirmed that she's leaving that position. There were some rumors out that people weren't totally happy with the way the merchandising was being run and stuff like that. But it's clear that they're growing faster and faster now. So it could be just beyond somebody who has had independent experience, running her husband and brother stuff. So that news came out there.
Her husband also just signed a monster contract, and they might not need her to be working anymore. So
in truth, you
The
can
merch
somebody
is bad. Like it's not good. Yeah.
you can find somebody who's had way more experience fill those shoes and probably help fill the company's pockets a little bit with some merch dollars. And then the final story that I have is that the card for Wrestle Kingdom 18 has been set. There are a few matches on this card that are intriguing, but for those of us that are interested in New Japan, the match card is as follows: Sonata versus Tetsuya Naito for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, Okada versus Bryan Danielson, Ospreay versus Moxley versus David Finlay for the IWGP Global Heavyweight title, Hiromu Takahashi versus El Desperado for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Hiroshi Tanahashi for the NJPW World Television title, Shingo Takagi versus Tama Tonga for the Never Openweight Championship, Clark Connors and Drilla Maloney versus TJP and Francesco Akira for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag titles. The IWGP Tag Team Champions Haruki Goto and Yoshihashi versus the NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team Champions Hikuleo and El Phantasmo in a winner-takes-all tag team title match. Yuya Uemura versus Yota Tsuji. Kaito Kiyomiya versus and Shota Umino versus Ren Narita and Evil. And New Japan Rambo Final Four advanced to the New Year's Dash to the KOPW 2024 belt. So I think most people here who might be listening, it would be Okada Danielson. But boy, that Sonata Naito match is really, really intriguing for me. Also, Moxley, Ospreay, Finlay. That's a fun match. I mean, this whole card is stacked.
Wrestle Kingdom, baby.
Of course. And
that's
it's just
President Tanahashi to you.
That's true. That is now new Commander-in-Chief Tanahashi.
That's right.
So, I mean, it's just a call out here. Yeah, there's some AEW talent on this card. If you don't watch New Japan, these names probably seem foreign to you. And that's, again, no pun intended. But I can speak from experience. I don't watch a ton of New Japan. I've been to, Kate, how many New Japan shows have we been to now at this point?
Probably more than the AEW this year. Yeah.
Seriously. But they are so fucking great. Just those matches are awesome. And I've gone into some of those events dark, not even knowing the match card. And like, they're just so fun, so awesome. If you have a chance to see this, you should definitely check it out. Wrestle Kingdom is their WrestleMania, basically, or their all in, all out, whatever. So you should certainly check it out. This should be a great card. So
it's also super fun because of the time difference. Like it just feels like a big slumber party. So everybody's just like out of their minds tweeting about it at 3 a.m. It's really, really fun. So would encourage it 100%.
Will not be watching real time if I watch it at all, because here's always what happens. Now that's me. That is me basically saying you should watch this, and then I'm going to break the walls down as one Y2J did. I don't think I've ever watched one of those events live, and then I'm always like, yeah, I'm going to go watch it, and I never go watch it. I'm so bad at going back and watching wrestling. Still haven't seen Final Battle from this year. I haven't hooked up to watch it. So I watched Final Battle 2013 though. I did watch that.
Did.
So gang, that is all for our news and notes. And we are going home to Worlds Collide or World's End, whatever the hell it is. So we will talk about that next week. There's a chance that maybe we do a prediction show that we'll have on Saturday. Stay tuned to the socials. We're going to talk about it behind the scenes and let you guys know. But right now, we're going to do some plugs and let you guys get out of here. So, Kate, you got a ton of stuff going on. Why don't you let the people know where they can find you?
Sure. So, as mentioned earlier, I've got my interview with Rocky Romero dropping tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, which I'm very excited about, and an end-of-year feature that's about wrestling around the globe and will continue into next year. But my usual schedule is Mondays on Fightful Select for the Raw post show. Not this week, though, because we have days off thanks to WWE schedule. Tuesdays, the NXT post show on the main. Thursdays and Fridays also on the main with your ROH and SmackDown post shows as well. No SmackDown this week. Very excited about that, too. And then Wednesdays right here at the Mark Order Podcast whenever it can be.
So check out Kate. Did you drop your handle on social, Kate?
Oh, yeah, at Miss Kate Fabe on social media and on my YouTube channel. So subscribe here, subscribe there, subscribe everywhere.
Just so you can keep track of where Kate's going to be. Definitely give her a follow and a subscribe. Joe, tell the people where they can find you.
Oh, it's always so hard to follow Kate. I feel so marginalized.
She stole all your spots. I know.
On the socials at _ Asian Joe. In my bio on my social medias, I have a link to my cereal review blog. I just realized it's been 5 years since I started that up. So,
hey,
I know it all started with Sour Patch Kids cereal.
Didn't have staying power, I guess. Definitely check out Asian Joe on socials and check out his cereal blog. It is a fun read. As for me, if you want to follow me on X, you can follow me at AntMoney, on Instagram at AntMoney247. More importantly, follow the Mark Order Podcast on all of our socials at Mark Order Pod, X, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I said X already. TikTok, Facebook. And definitely subscribe to us on YouTube. Thanks to everybody who watched along tonight. The usual gang: Jesse Ozog, Scott George, First Lieutenant Photo. Gordon Post was hanging out. We had Eric Freeds check in earlier. Pedro, Sloanamite, I saw check in earlier before too. So a lot of the usual crew. We appreciate you guys always for checking us out live and chatting along. We love it to see you guys sort of chatting it up with us and others in the live chat. If you're listening in podcast form, thank you as well. Make sure you're subscribing, liking, rating, reviewing anywhere on the podcast platforms, because that helps us in the algorithms. But if you haven't checked us out on YouTube, certainly head over and check out the video feed. Last week, Ryan's rap with our reactions was priceless. We've also got the shorts up that you could check out. But certainly subscribe, please, on YouTube. That will help us out greatly. We're going to figure out some sort of raffle. There's a lot of competing raffles for when we get to 500. We're going to have to iron that out, because some of us are not remembering the discussions that we had. But anyway, subscribe on YouTube. And I'm also going to just plug again my appearance on ROH Revelry with Milwaukee Tom. Go check that out. That's a ROH retrospective podcast and all sorts of other conversations. Like me and Tom talked music, and they do their questions of dishonor, where we were like SJ submitted a couple where we were saying who would be, from the roster on The Walking Dead, and who would be the Ring of Honor Santa Claus. All sorts of fun stuff. So check that show out. Support those guys. I look forward to my next appearance, whenever that may be down the road. And fingers crossed William Mercier Jr. can join us. I just don't think he likes me. Yes, Joe?
I forgot to add one thing. Since this is the last show of the year, thank you guys for welcoming me and bringing me into the fold this year. So I appreciate it. It's been fun. And I look forward to a full year ahead.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, Joe, you beat me to the punch a little bit, but for sure, it's been another great year for us on the Mark Order Podcast. We wouldn't do this without the support from you guys out there watching, listening, whatever. Buying shirts, asking for stickers. We had to stop the stickers because so many people were requesting them in 2023, which is mind-boggling that there are that many stickers out there. If you got stickers, we definitely would love to see where you wind up putting them. So send them to us, tag us on social, all that kind of stuff. But, thank you for the support. We have a lot of fun stuff sort of geared up for 2024. One of the first things we know is going to happen is we're going to start doing watch alongs on Saturday nights for Collision. We're talking about possibly doing it sort of like Manning Cast style, where a couple of us hosted. We're talking about primarily Asian Joe and Ryan with a couple guests here and there throughout, watching along and shooting the shit. So it has a different vibe to this show, and is a little more fun and interactive with the other people who are sort of on watching. So we know we've got that planned. We've got other content that we've got in the hopper. So we're looking forward to 2024. Joe, a pleasure bringing you into the fold in 2023.
You're not the step host, but you're the host who stepped up.
That's boom. Beautiful. We definitely miss Ryan on this episode. I wish he was here for the last one of the year, but we'll see Ryan again next week. So we'll see Ryan. Kate, thank you for a wonderful 2023. I love all you guys here co-hosting with me. I love all you guys who support us. Thank you again. I don't know, Kate, if you wanted to add anything before we sign off.
No, just that everything you were saying about when you went on ROH Revelry, about how it's a place where you can kind of just let a little bit more loose, is exactly how I feel every time that I'm on here. So it's very appreciated to have this outlet, and above any of you guys being people that I get to do a podcast with, the friendships are the best part of this. So I appreciate you and everybody that supported us, anybody that follows what we do and hangs in there for our fun, wonderfully weird little shows. I appreciate you so much. And I look forward to 2024 in wrestling world and this world and beyond. So
for sure. And I forgot. I'm sorry. I have to do it before we sign off. Don't forget to check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store. Hit the link tree in our bio, or go to prowrestlingtees.com/markorderpod, or just search the Mark Order Podcast on Pro Wrestling Tees. You can see they have a sale coming up December 29th, 1 p.m. Eastern through January 2nd at 1 p.m. Eastern. Just use promo code NY2024 and get 20% off your order. You can get our 4 shirts when you use the promo code, save 20% off on your shirt. The money you do spend there helps us fund some of the things that we need to put on this show. Believe it or not, it does cost us some money to put this show on. Doesn't seem like it. The production value is sort of low, but it's getting better. That's what 2024 is for, right? New beginnings.
that's right. And we're going to need the rights to a lot of music if Ryan's going to keep rapping. So,
oh my God, the guy is costing me so much money. I keep telling him 20 seconds. That's all you have. And then he goes on 2.5 minute long raps.
Tony Khan has it easy compared to what we have to pay in rights fees. It's ridiculous.
Gotta rein it in. But guys, thank you so much again for the support. We look forward to more of this in 2024. Stay tuned to our socials. We will let you know if we're going to have a prediction show for the pay-per-view on Saturday. But we've had a lot of fun this year. More fun coming up next year. And check us out next week, same time, Wednesday night, here on the Mark Order Podcast.
This concludes the Mark Order Podcast. We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming. Join the Mark Order.